It's Yusung's first day at Hunter Academy. Among all the students in the class, the teacher notices something different about him, a unique aura that no one else has. That's exactly why he picks Yusung first and sends him to the image room to test his abilities. Before entering, Yusung's asked to choose a difficulty level. Without a second of hesitation, Yusung selects the highest one, instantly shocking everyone watching. Even the teacher starts wondering if he can actually handle it, but he just steps forward calmly. The moment the test begins, the room transforms into a scorching desert. 3 massive orcs are already waiting for him, and they charge immediately, aiming to kill, and Yusung doesn't move, not even a little. Then, he activates his enhanced senses. Everything slows down, almost like time itself freezes. He notices something the others missed. Behind the charging orcs, 2 archer orcs are hiding behind a rock, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But that's not a problem. Not for him. He effortlessly blocks all 3 orcs at once, crushing their weapons with his bare hands, and then taking them down just as easily. To him, they're just too slow. Right then, the archers finally make their move. Arrows fly straight toward him, but before they can even touch him, he disappears. The orcs freeze in confusion, looking around, trying to figure out where he went. Too late. He's already above them. They're dead before they even realize it. When Yusung walks out of the testing room, the entire class is stunned. He's just set a new record. Even the teacher can't believe what he just saw. So now there's only one question. Why is Yusung this fast and this strong? Deep in the mountains lived an old man known as the Fist King. He believed that most hunters relied too much on their traits and not enough on their bodies. To him, real strength meant being able to crush a monster with bare hands, without depending on luck or talent. Because of that belief, he searched for a disciple who could surpass all hunters. He found that disciple in an orphanage, a small boy, Shin Yusung, with an unusual constitution. The child was born with the rare 9-blocked chi pathways, a body that granted overwhelming mana, sharp senses, and perfect physical balance but also shortened the lifespan of its owner. Normally, such a person would die young, unable to handle the power inside them. However, he also possessed another constitution called abundance of bodily chi, which balanced the flaw and allowed his body to endure what others could not. The old master saw that combination as something that would never appear again in human history. He took the child from the orphanage and brought him to the mountain, deciding to raise him himself. From that day, his life became nothing but training. On the 7th day after the training began, at the age of 7, he managed to defeat a wild boar with his bare hands. The old man only compared him to the legendary sword god, who had defeated a rank 2 monster at the same age, and complained that his result was still not enough. Instead of praise, he received stricter training. On the 1040th day, at the age of 8, he shattered a giant tree with a single punch. Even then, the master remained dissatisfied. From that point on, the training became even harsher, pushing him past the limits of normal hunters. Years passed on the mountain, and the boy's strength grew to the point where ordinary hunters could no longer compare. During one sparring session, the master suddenly attacked without warning and sent him sliding back with a single punch. Instead of stopping, he forced himself to counter, changed his movement at the last moment, and appeared behind him to strike. The attack was stopped with one finger, yet the old man finally admitted that his posture had improved. Even so, he warned him not to become satisfied, reminding him that the world was full of hunters stronger than he imagined. Hearing that, he understood that leaving the mountain would mean facing enemies just like his master, monsters who would not forgive even the smallest mistake. But he was determined that he would become the strongest hunter alive, no matter how long it took. On the 21st of training, the master announced that their time together was over. Now 17 years old, he prepared to leave the mountain for the first time since childhood. Before he left, the old man handed him a small metal knuckle. The moment he touched it, a system panel appeared in front of his eyes, showing an acceptance notice from Gaon Academy, the most famous hunter training institute in the world. He explained that he had already sent a recommendation letter and that the mountain was no longer the place for him. Yusung paid his respects, thanking him for raising him all those years, then turned toward the path leading down the mountain. As he walked away, the old master murmured that the world was filled with countless hunters and endless battles, and he would face many people stronger than him. However, he would become the strongest among them in the end, because he was the disciple of Yu Wonhak, the strongest hunter in the world, who had raised him with his own hands. After the outbreak, humanity realized that strength alone was not enough, so they built a system to properly train future hunters. Special academies were established to teach combat, weapon handling, monster knowledge, and control over traits. Among them, the most famous institution was Gaon Academy, known for producing the strongest active hunters in the world. Students who entered the academy spent 3 years learning everything required to survive on the battlefield. On the day of admission, the boy arrived at the academy for the first time and was welcomed directly by the headmaster. The one waiting for him was Headmaster Jin Byung-chul, a man known for judging talent with a single glance. He welcomed the newcomer politely and asked if he truly wished to enroll in Gaon. Although his expression looked calm, the headmaster was already certain that the boy must be extraordinary. He was the disciple of Fist King Yu Wanhak, the hunter who was famous for overwhelming strength without relying on traits. Because of that, Byung-chul assumed that the boy would at least possess an S-rank ability. That expectation shattered the moment the boy revealed his trait. It was an F rank. Byung-chul thought he had misheard and tried to laugh it off, saying that it was impossible for Yu Wanhak's disciple to have such a low rank. Instead of correcting himself, the boy opened his status panel and showed it directly. The only ability listed was Heightened Focus, which was classified as an F-rank trait. For a moment, the headmaster could not speak. Sweat formed on his forehead as he realized the old man had sent him someone with the lowest possible ranking. The boy simply stated that his master had trained him to fight without depending on traits. Hearing that, Byung-chul understood that the old coot had done this on purpose. Even so, he could not refuse the recommendation he had promised to accept. After calming himself, he explained the academy's rule. At Gaon, rank alone meant nothing. Anyone who wished to enroll had to prove their ability in combat, even if their trait was the lowest. Soon after, a notice spread across the academy announcing a special enrollment test. Any student who defeated the newcomer would receive 50 school points as a reward. The announcement also mentioned that the challenger was the disciple of the Fist King, which quickly drew everyone's attention. Among the students, one boy reacted louder than the rest. Known for his arrogance, loudmouth Ju Hajin immediately decided that the test was an easy chance to earn points. When he heard that the Fist King's disciple's trait was only F rank, he became even more confident and declared that he would handle the fight himself. He even told his classmates that anyone who wanted the reward should try to stop him first, then walked out of the room with a smug smile. He grinned about the fact that he would gain 50 school points with such ease, pondering the Fist King might take him as his disciple. On his way to the arena, he accidentally bumped into the top-ranked student, Ice Princess Adela. The moment he recognized her, his confidence disappeared, and he quickly stepped aside without saying another word. Hearing about Fist King reminded her of something from childhood. Her grandfather had once told her about his ally who stood above everyone else, a man whose presence alone made battles feel safe. According to him, even he as a genius could not last a single exchange against that fighter. The name he mentioned that day was Fist King Yu Wanhak, the strongest hunter in history, and an old ally he respected deeply. Remembering that story, she became curious about the disciple who had just arrived. If the boy was truly trained by that man, he would be extraordinary. Meanwhile, the newcomer had already changed into the academy uniform and was waiting near the training ground. One of the students, Lee Siwoo, complimented that he looked good in the uniform. Yu-sung mentioned that he felt comfortable in the outfit since it allowed free movement, which mattered more to him than appearance. Siwoo explained the equipment on his wrist, a safety device that would automatically create a barrier if the wearer was in danger. Because of that protection, students could fight seriously without risking their lives. When Siwoo heard who his first opponent would be, he noticed that the student chosen for the test seemed stronger than expected for an entrance match. Even so, he showed no hesitation, so he decided not to scare him before he had even started. When the signal for the test was finally announced, he walked toward the arena with a steady expression, holding only one thought in his mind. He would pass the test no matter what. The arena was already prepared for the match, and the academy reporter, Hannah, announced that she would be covering the fight involving the Fist King's disciple, who had recently drawn a lot of attention. She introduced the participants, first calling the mysterious newcomer, Shin Yu-sung, and then his opponent, the trainee ranked 42nd in the year, the runaway student, Ha Jin, announcing that he felt overwhelmed and wanted to prove if Yu-sung deserved to stand in Gaon Academy and was not just living under his master's reputation. Some students in the audience doubted him, saying he was only there for SP and reminding each other of his low ranking, which made him even more determined to show his strength. He assured that it would be a match worthy of the prestige of Gaon's name. Hannah then turned to the newcomer and asked what he felt before the fight. After a short pause, he simply said that he would do his best. With that, the countdown began. The runaway trainee had already decided that he would use his trait the moment the signal started, believing he could finish the fight instantly. However, the moment the match began, he lost sight of his opponent. Before he could react, the Fist King's disciple had already closed the distance and struck him with a single kick to the face. The impact shattered the protective barrier in one blow, and the trainee collapsed before anyone could understand what had happened. The arena fell silent for a moment before Hannah announced the result in shock, confirming that the barrier had broken in one hit and declared him the winner. Many students were left stunned, and even those who doubted him could not hide their surprise at such a clean knockout. Later, Hajin woke up in the infirmary, still confused about where the hell he was at the moment. The doctor calmly told him where he was and handed him medicine, but his thoughts remained on the fight. He could not remember seeing the attack at all, which made him realize that the opponent was in no world an F rank. The thought alone sent a chill through him. At the same time, Yu-sung was called to the principal's office, where the old head greeted him with a satisfied smile and officially congratulating him on becoming a student of Gaon Academy. Although the result had gone as expected, The principal knew it was still too early to judge his true ability. Even if he carried the lowest rank, he was still the Fist King's disciple, and that alone made him different from the others. Because of that, the principal reminded him that the entrance test was only the beginning. If he truly wanted to follow his master's path and become the strongest hunter, then he should aim for the highest goal in the academy, the group known as the Sevens, the 7 rankers who represented Gaon itself. No F rank had ever reached that position before, which made the challenge almost impossible, but the principal kept it hidden. He told him that a path always existed, even if only 7 people could reach the end of it. Before the conversation could continue, another student asked for permission to enter. The principal allowed it and explained that the newcomer was attending Gaon for the first time and needed someone to guide him around the academy. The student stepped inside, and the moment the two saw each other, he remarked that they had met before, as Siwoo greeted him like an acquaintance, confirming that their meeting at the academy was not the first. Siwoo guided the newcomer through the academy, explaining that the principal had asked him to show him around since he was already familiar with the place. The disciple thanked him, and Lee Siwoo casually introduced himself, saying he could just call him Siwoo. After a short greeting, they continued walking through the campus while many students secretly stared at the newcomer, drawn by his appearance and the rumors about his match. Siwoo brought up the fight from earlier, saying he had watched it himself and was shocked that the runaway trainee had been knocked out the moment the match started. Even among the lower classes, that trainee had been considered one of the stronger students, so the result had surprised everyone. Yusung replied modestly that he still had a lot to learn, which made Siwoo laugh and call him overly humble, since even the higher-ranked classes had been talking about that one-sided victory. Their conversation stopped when a group approached from the opposite side of the hall. At the front stood a woman wearing the armband marked with an X, the sign of one of the highest-ranked classes, and beside her was the vice president, Lee Hyuk. Siwoo immediately became tense and stepped aside, apologizing for blocking the way as he tried to call Yusung, but saw his pale face. The woman looked directly at the newcomer as if she had already recognized him. She asked if he was the new student everyone had been talking about, then quietly said that she had not expected to see him here. Her smile looked calm, but the words she whispered when she passed by were cold, calling him the faulty product of their family. The moment she left, Siwoo realized who he really was, and muttered in shock that he had not expected Yusung was from the Shino family. The words triggered an old memory, and for a moment Yusung felt as if he had been pulled back into the past. He remembered the same voice asking him what it felt like to be a failure, saying that she could not understand because she had never been one herself. The feeling wrapped around him like a web, tightening until he could barely breathe, and he only returned to his senses when Siwoo called out to him, noticing that his face had turned pale. Thinking he might be exhausted from the exam and the match, Siwoo suggested going straight to the dorms, especially since the rain outside had started to pour heavily. Yusung agreed, and they headed toward the residential building. The dorm assigned to new students was much simpler than the higher rank ones, and Siwoo apologized, saying that better rooms were given only after climbing the rankings. He expected the boy to be disappointed, but instead he seemed relieved, saying the place was good enough for him. Surprised by the reaction, Siwoo handed him the key and told him to call any time if he needed help, then left him to rest. After washing up, the disciple lay on the bed and stared out at the rain hitting the window. The sound reminded him of the day his life had changed. He remembered sitting in a car while a cold voice told him to blame them all he wanted, but that every human had a limit, and that trying to go beyond it only brought despair. Because he had been born into the Shino family, he should understand that better than anyone. Not long after, he had been left at an orphanage with nothing, and at that time he had believed it was his own fault for failing to meet their expectations and for not being like his older sister. Thinking that way had made it easier to accept being abandoned, convincing himself that it was natural for someone weak to be thrown away. That belief had continued until the day another figure appeared before him, the man known as the Fist King, the strongest hunter in the world. The hunter claimed that the boy had hidden talent and offered to train him, promising that he could surpass anyone if he tried. At first, the offer sounded like a sweet dream, but the boy had refused, saying that expecting anything from himself would only lead to disappointment, and that it was better to remain still from the start than to fail again. The hunter had laughed at that answer and told him he was wrong. The strongest person was not someone who never failed, but someone who failed more than anyone else and still stood up again. He promised that even if the boy cried or despaired, he would teach him how to rise every time until he became the strongest. Then he held out his hand, and after hesitating, the boy finally took it. Remembering that moment now, Yusung realized that the past no longer felt as painful as before. The memories that once hurt him had slowly been replaced by new ones, and the weight he used to carry no longer held him down the same way. Just as he reached that thought, his watch buzzed with a message from Siwoo asking if the dorm was comfortable and telling him to contact him if anything felt inconvenient. Yusung replied with a smile that everything was fine, then put the watch aside, thinking that what mattered was not the past he came from, but the present he was living now. The next morning, a girl, Hanajima Sumire, woke up early, got ready neatly, and left for class after breakfast. She had transferred to Gaon Academy only a month ago, yet the place still amazed her every time she walked through the campus. Compared to other academies, the scale of the facilities was completely different. The training grounds were huge, the equipment was advanced, and there were even special rooms designed to help hunters recover their mana faster. However, most of those benefits were not available to everyone. The best facilities were reserved for the highest-ranking students, the group known as the Sevens, and for someone like her, they felt like something far out of reach. Her own ranking made that reality clear every day. She stood at 659 in F class, almost at the bottom, so even though she passed the advanced buildings every morning, she could only look at them from the outside before heading to her regular classroom. That day, their lesson was held in the image room, which immediately made the class restless because such rooms were rarely given to lower ranks. When everyone gathered, the instructor introduced himself as Lin Xiao and explained that he had once been a rank 5 hunter. He told the students not to feel pressured, promising that he would focus on teaching them properly. As proof of that, he had obtained permission to use the image room for training, something normally reserved for higher classes. Even though they were only F class, he wanted them to experience real combat simulations instead of basic drills. While the students were still surprised by the announcement, the door suddenly opened and Siwoo rushed in with the newcomer behind him, apologizing for being late and explaining that he had been giving the new student a tour of the academy. Shin Yu-sung calmly introduced himself, and the moment Sumire saw his face, she immediately recognized him as the student everyone had been talking about since the entrance match. The teacher also recognized the name and said he had heard rumors about the Fist King's disciple joining the academy. After hearing the confirmation, he looked at him with interest, finding the situation strange. A legendary hunter's disciple having an F-rank trait sounded like an odd combination, yet the aura he felt from him did not seem ordinary at all. The teacher praised Yu-sung for his hard work, to which he mentioned that he had never skipped a single day, which made the teacher nod in approval and say that diligence and consistency were more important than talent for any hunter, leaving the students surprised that the F rank was recognized by a rank 5 hunter. Since the class was already in the image room, the teacher decided it would be the perfect chance to check the newcomer's ability. He explained how the system worked, telling him to use the pocket device to select the difficulty and start the simulation. The disciple walked to the panel without hesitation and began adjusting the settings. The moment the difficulty level changed to hard mode, the entire class went silent. Even the teacher was surprised, because that level was usually used for students far above F class. While pondering that the setting might be too much, he allowed the simulation to begin. Hard mode with rank 3 difficulty was not dangerous enough to kill, but it was far beyond what someone of his rank should handle, making it impossible to tell if the boy was confident or simply reckless. The hologram in the room started as the illusion activated, and the training field appeared around him. 3 orcs formed in front of him, roaring in anger that their territory had been invaded. The moment they spotted him, they rushed forward without hesitation to kill. Instead of moving right away, the disciple closed his eyes and steadied his breathing, using his heightened focus. When he finally opened them again, his body was already prepared to strike. As the simulation started, the 3 orcs rushed forward without hesitation, trying to overwhelm Yu-sung with brute force. Instead of reacting immediately, he used his trait and carefully read the battlefield. In the middle of the charge, he sensed another presence behind the rocks at the edge of the field. 2 archers were hiding there, waiting for the right moment to strike. It was a basic hunting strategy, using the warriors in front to exhaust the opponent before finishing the fight from a distance, so he decided to deal with the front line quickly before the real attack began. One of the orcs swung its blade toward him, but the strike was blocked effortlessly. In the same motion, he grabbed the creature by the face and slammed it into the ground, then stepped aside and deflected the second attack with speed that shattered their axe. Seeing the front line collapse faster than expected, the hidden archers immediately fired their arrows, trying to catch him off guard. The moment the arrows were released, smoke burst across the field from the impact, blocking their view. When the smoke cleared, the 3 warriors were already down, and before the archers could understand what had happened, our boy appeared behind them. With 2 quick strikes, both were knocked out before they could prepare another shot. The simulation ended instantly, and the result panel appeared in the room, showing that student Yu-sung had cleared rank 3 hard mode. The time displayed was 1 minute and 11 seconds, faster than any previous record. The class went silent, and even Siwoo and Sumire could not hide their shock. No one had expected a first year from F class to finish that level so easily. Lin Xiao stared at the screen for a moment before letting out a quiet laugh. At first, he had thought the entrance match might have been a fluke, but the movements he had just seen were far too precise to be a coincidence. He admitted to himself that Yu-sung's skill was real, and with that level of control, aiming for the 7s was not impossible. After the class ended, Siwoo walked beside him and congratulated him for breaking the record on the very first day. He explained that the academy judged everything by ranking, and ability was the only thing that truly mattered. but the system was still harsh. At the very top stood 7 students known as the Sevens, and no one from the lower classes had ever reached that position before. Because of that, even someone strong would need more than talent to climb that high. At the same time, in another part of the academy, Adela was looking at the record board when she noticed that her name was no longer in first place. The new record showed 1 minute and 11 seconds, and the name written beside it was of Yusung. The moment she read it, her heart began to race while a cold feeling spread through her chest. The name reminded her of the only hunter who had ever defeated her grandfather, and the connection made her uneasy without knowing why. Before she could think further, a message arrived on her watch announcing the first semester exam along with the team assignments. The same notice reached Siwoo and our boy as well. Siwoo explained that the exam would be done in pairs, so the partner he received would be important, and he joked that getting a good teammate could decide everything. When he asked who he wanted to be paired with, Yusung calmly mentioned that it was Hanajima Sumire. At the same time, in her dorm room, Sumire read the same message and suddenly panicked, shouting his name out loud without realizing it herself, only noticing after that her face had turned completely red. The next day, the cafeteria was louder than usual because everyone was talking about the upcoming exam. Most students were more worried about surviving than getting a high score, and many were discussing how important it was to be paired with a strong partner. Some even argued about hierarchy, saying that in this academy it was normal to follow those ranked above you, because rank decided everything. Watching the noisy crowd, Siwoo explained that this was how things always became before an exam. The result would determine which class a student belonged to, and the difference between ranks was huge. Higher classes received better training, better facilities, and more opportunities, while the lower ones had to struggle with limited support. Because of that, even a small change in ranking could completely change a student's life at the academy. While he was talking, a girl suddenly sat beside them and joined the conversation, as if she had always been there. She introduced herself as Rania and greeted Yusung with bright enthusiasm, saying this was their first proper meeting. The moment she looked at him closely, her excitement overwhelmed her as she dramatically declared that if he ever had free time, he should consider marrying her. The sudden comment left him speechless, while Siwoo quickly stepped in and explained that Yusung couldn't understand jokes. Rania immediately denied it and insisted she was completely serious, which only made the situation more awkward. Siwoo tried to change the topic and told her she did not need to sit with them just because they were exam partners, but she replied that she was not there for him at all. She said she only wanted to know who Yusung had been paired with, since everyone was curious about it. Hearing that, Siwoo hesitated for a moment, then said she should not be too surprised when she saw the result. When the pairing panel appeared, the name shown beside Yusung was Sumire, and Rania reacted with obvious shock. Seeing their reaction, Yusung asked why everyone looked so surprised. Siwoo struggled to explain, and finally admitted that even among F-class students, she was known for being unusually weak. Rania added that the problem was not only her strength. When she first transferred to the academy, everyone had tried to help her because she was extremely quiet and never raised her head, but strange rumors had started to spread soon after. According to those stories, one student had returned to the classroom late at night and found her alone, surrounded by an ominous aura while writing something disturbing in her notebook. No one knew what she had written, so the story became exaggerated. Another rumor said that someone once picked up a handkerchief she dropped, only to find it filled with long strands of hair. There were even wilder stories claiming she had transferred from Japan after putting her entire class in the hospital. Rania admitted that she did not really believe all of that, but the truth was that Sumir's actual ability was far below what anyone expected. Even in F class, she struggled because of her weak strength. Siwoo added that he had heard she used to be one of the best students in her old academy, which made the situation even stranger. Hearing that, Yusung thought that the only way to understand the truth was to hear it directly from her instead of relying on rumors. Before they could say anything more, a quiet voice spoke from behind them. Sumire had been sitting there the whole time, and she apologized for being assigned as his partner, saying she knew everyone felt disappointed when they got someone like her. She admitted that she was weak, that she could barely use her ability, and that she had even lost to a rank 1 monster before, so she understood why people saw her as a burden. The atmosphere became so uncomfortable that Siwoo and Rania quickly excused themselves, saying they would leave the two of them alone. After they were gone, Yusung suggested going outside to talk, and they walked to the garden where it was quieter. He handed her a drink and waited until she calmed down before Sumire tried to talk. Sumire said she was aware of how weak she looked, but the rumors about her were mostly misunderstandings. The night she stayed in class, she had only been writing in her ledger, and the hair people talked about was not something strange, but a requirement of her trait. She then revealed that her ability was called Controller of the Undead, a rare black magic type trait that specialized in summoning undead servants. The problem was that she could only use one skill so far, and it required her to offer her own hair as a catalyst. To prove she was telling the truth, she placed a strand of hair on the ground and activated the skill. Dark energy spread across the floor like liquid, covering the offering before slowly taking shape. From the strange acidic glow, a skeleton emerged up from the ground. To Yusung's surprise, the skeleton Sumire summoned stood there timidly, without moving properly. Seeing this, Sumire admitted that there was a serious flaw in her summoning skill. To demonstrate the problem, she ordered the skeleton to attack a nearby tree. The skeleton stepped forward and threw a punch, but the moment it struck, its bones cracked and the whole body shattered into pieces. Watching this, Yusung realized the issue. Sumire's summoning required hair as a catalyst, and the strength of the summon depended on the owner of that hair. Since transferring, she had lost access to the people she used before, which meant her summons had become much weaker. He understood that she must have relied on stronger students in the past, but after leaving Japan for Korea, those connections disappeared, making it hard for her to ask anyone for help, especially students stronger than her. Yusung called out to her and offered a strand of his own hair. Sumire hesitated at first, saying that most people felt uncomfortable becoming a material for her skill, but Yusung told her to use it without worrying. Accepting it, she performed the summoning again. This time, the skeleton that appeared looked completely different. Its body was firm, and the light in its eyes was clear and steady. When she ordered it to attack the tree, the skeleton rushed forward and struck with full force. The impact alone was strong, but right after the hit, a blueprint of his impact spread across the tree, and a powerful blast followed, shaking the surroundings. Sumire was stunned. Normally, her summons could only reproduce about 30% of the original owner's strength, yet this one showed far more power than she expected. Yusung simply said that this level should be enough to be useful during the test. Hearing that, Sumire stared at him in disbelief, feeling that with his help, she might finally be able to keep up with the others. She grabbed his hand and apologized, then awkwardly asked if she could have a few more hairs. Yusung sighed and remarked that giving that many would be troublesome, but he did not refuse. The scene then shifted to the principal's office, where the principal was looking over a map of Jewel Island. Lin Xiao entered, reporting that all preparations for the evaluation had been completed, and that every precaution had been taken to avoid accidents. The principal replied that there was no need to be overly nervous, since only one place on the island was truly dangerous. Lin Xiao assured him that the students had been warned many times not to approach that area. The principal mentioned that there had been one exception in the past, when a first-year student entered that zone alone and cleared it, something that had only happened once in the academy's history. The teacher immediately understood that he was talking about the current student council president, Shin Hyun, whose name had even spread to other academies. The principal confirmed it and said that she was born a genius from the Shino family, and that someone like that could only be stopped by another monster just like her. The next day, as the ship departed, Adela stood on the deck feeling the wind while looking at the sea. While she was lost in thought, Kim Yuna from first-year A class, who ranked second, approached her and asked why she looked so serious. Adela ignored her and walked past, which made Yuna annoyed. She stopped her and suggested having another match, saying that the ship even had a training arena, so it was a perfect chance to settle the score. But Adela retorted that it had only been 3 days since their last fight, which made her question why she wanted another match so soon. Yuna insisted that she could win this time, but Adela calmly denied it. When asked why she looked persistent, Yuna admitted that she simply hated losing, which was why she wanted a rematch. Before the argument could continue, a voice called out for the new transfer student. Adela glanced to the side and saw him walking with Siwoo. Yuna noticed her reaction and pointed out that he was the disciple of the Fist King, the same man who had once defeated Adela's grandfather. She teased her, saying that it would not be strange if the rankings changed because of him, and that the #1 position might not stay the same forever. Adela showed no interest in the provocation and walked away, saying that if anything changed, Yuna would fall to 3rd place instead. Left behind, Yuna angrily muttered that the matter was not over yet and complained about how irritating everything felt, while her eyes briefly followed the transfer student. The scene shifted to the lecture hall, where Siwoo began explaining the second quarter evaluation on Jewel Island. He revealed that the island was actually the corpse of a rank 7 boss monster known as the Abyss Whale, a gigantic creature once capable of swallowing an entire cruise ship in a single bite. It had been defeated long ago by the Fist King and other legendary hunters. When Rania wondered how such a monster became an island, Sumire explained that the residual mana from the whale remained after its death. Siwoo continued the explanation, saying that the corpse absorbed the surrounding reef and gradually transformed into land. Because of the heavy mana concentration, new plants, monsters, and minerals were created, forming a unique ecosystem. The island was called Jewel Island because many of the monsters carried jewel-like ores on their bodies. After that, Siwoo showed the scoring system for the evaluation. Rank 1 monsters were worth 1 point, Rank 2 monsters 5 points, and Rank 3 monsters 30 points, while the Crystal Golem was worth 200 points. Hearing the number, Sumire reacted with excitement, but Siwoo immediately warned them that no low-rank class had ever defeated a Crystal Golem. It was a Rank 3 boss monster, and fighting it recklessly would only lead to failure. He advised everyone to aim for safe points instead of chasing big rewards, explaining that defeating Rank 1 and Rank 2 monsters steadily was enough to reach the average score. After finishing the explanation, he lightened the mood by saying that chances to ride a cruise ship like this were rare, so they should also enjoy the trip and the food while preparing for the test, which raised the students' morale as they got excited for tasting expensive dishes. After that, the four of them spent a long time eating together on the ship. The food kept coming, and each dish tasted better than the last, so they continued eating far more than they planned. They tried the juice, dumplings, and several kinds of meat, and by the time they stopped, everyone was completely full. Later that night, they sat down to rest, complaining that they had eaten too much. Rania said she felt like she might throw up, while Siwoo looked exhausted, but Yusung seemed perfectly fine and said that he had enjoyed the day. Seeing that he was still energetic, Siwoo joked that he did not look tired at all. Rania decided to go rest first, and Siwoo followed soon after, leaving only Yusung and Sumire together. Now alone, Sumire became nervous and avoided looking directly at him. She quietly said that the day had passed very quickly. Yusung agreed and told her that moments like this were something he had never experienced while living in Martial Spirits Mountain. Since they would arrive at Jewel Island the next day, she suddenly became uneasy and wondered if she would end up being a burden during the test. She apologized for saying something negative on a day that had been fun, explaining that it was a bad habit of hers. Whenever she felt happy, she started worrying that she would make a mistake and ruin everything again. Yusung calmly told her that she did not need to think that way. Everyone makes mistakes, and if something went wrong, he would help her because they were partners. His words surprised her, and she said that he was very kind. She added that he did not seem like someone who would ever make mistakes. Hearing that, Yusung remembered his time in the mountains and shook his head. He recalled how he once caught a bear cub without thinking, only to be chased by the mother until his master stepped in and defeated it easily. There were also many times when he failed to recognize poisonous plants and made careless decisions because he believed he was ready when he was not. He admitted that he had made many mistakes and that every time, his master corrected him, which was why his master had become such an important person in his life. Sumire listened quietly and said that she understood. Her family was just as important to her, even though she had not been able to see them since transferring schools. When Yusung asked if she missed them, she replied that coming here had been her own choice, so she could not complain, but she still looked at their photos often, as she hesitated to ask if he wanted to look at her family. She then showed him a picture of her family, happily pointing out her parents and her siblings while asking if they looked cute. Yusung nodded, and she laughed, saying that one of them, Suguha, was especially mischievous compared to her. After a moment, Yusung asked something he had been wondering for a while. He said he did not believe the rumors about her hurting her classmates and wanted to know why she had transferred to such a distant place. The moment he asked, Sumire's expression changed. The smile disappeared, and her eyes lost focus as if she had been pulled back into a painful memory. She tried to speak, but her voice became uncertain, and her vision seemed to blur as the mood suddenly turned heavy. Memories suddenly resurfaced in her mind. She saw flashes of her trademark embedded in her hand, followed by the chaos that came after it. Shadows spread everywhere as countless skeletons rampaged through the area. The screams of injured students echoed around her, and their voices blamed everything on her. They cursed her greed, saying the disaster happened because she collected the hair. Some accused her of dragging everyone into danger, while others treated her like a criminal. Surrounded by anger and fear, she broke down in tears and blamed herself for being too greedy, wishing she could run away from everything. The memory ended abruptly, and in the present she found herself unable to speak as tears rolled down her face. Before she could gather herself, a voice gently interrupted. Our boy apologized to her and held her hand, telling her that she did not need to say anything if it only brought pain. Hearing that only made her feel more guilty, and she quietly apologized instead. He calmly reassured her that everyone had things they wanted to hide, and there was nothing wrong with that. Those words made her bite her lips, but the tension in her heart eased, and she realized how attentive he always was. By dawn the next morning, the ship finally reached Jewel Island. As the students stepped onto the shore, the teacher announced that the test would begin there. Not long after entering the forest, the sound of someone shouting for help echoed from deeper inside, reminding everyone how dangerous the island was. Sumire touched the pocket of her stored hairs and recalled the rules explained earlier. The size of the jewel depended on the monster's rank, and stronger monsters would give more points. The goal was simple: collect as many jewels as possible within 2 hours, and the points would be counted once the jewels were placed in the pocket. Remembering that, she made up her mind that she did not want to become a burden to anyone this time. Yusung suddenly called out to her, bringing her back to reality, and suggested that they should split up from there. She agreed, though she still looked nervous. He reminded her that she had his special item with her, so even a rank 3 monster should not be a problem. He confidently encouraged her, telling her she would be fine, and his carefree attitude made her feel strangely reassured. With that confidence, she decided to start the test on her own. She believed that with the secret weapon she had, which was Yusung's hair. However, just as she prepared herself, something suddenly rushed out from behind the trees and slammed straight into her, leaving her in complete tears. Inside the forest, Siwoo and Renaya moved carefully while collecting points one by one. Since the test was being held in a dense area, Siwoo directed her to avoid using too much power and focus on fighting only when necessary. Rania asked him to use his clairvoyance to search for targets, while she prepared to attack the moment he located one. After spotting a deer nearby, he left the attack to her. The animal rushed toward them, but she burned it instantly, turning it to ashes before it could get close. She complained that the warning came too late, yet he reminded her that the test had only started, and she needed to stay focused. Another presence soon appeared, and this time it was a large boar charging straight at them. Its size alone made her panic for a moment. He tried to shoot it with his bow, but the timing was off and the attack failed to stop it. Realizing he was not yet comfortable fighting like this, he hesitated, and the boar crashed into him, damaging his barrier heavily. Even so, he forced himself to stand his ground and finish the fight at close range, stabbing the beast in the head. After the monster fell, she rushed to check on him. He admitted that he was still not used to the bow and that his barrier had taken serious damage. Once again, he had needed her support, which frustrated him more than the injury itself. She suggested that they should rest for a while so he could restore his barrier, and he agreed without arguing. While he lay down to recover, he could not believe how close he had come to being eliminated so early in the test. His thoughts drifted to the others, wondering how they were doing, though he felt certain that at least Yusung would be fine no matter what. Elsewhere in the forest, the drone watching the exam captured a much more dangerous situation. A group of students was running in panic after accidentally provoking a jewel elephant. The massive creature chased them through the trees, and they quickly realized they had no way to outrun it. Someone suggested fighting, but the idea sounded reckless since facing a rank 3 monster without preparation was almost suicide. Before they could decide what to do, they reached a dead end and had no choice but to turn around. With no escape left, they prepared every trick they had. They used poison, traps, and ranged attacks, throwing everything at the monster in desperation. One of them launched a hammer shot that seemed powerful enough, but the wound barely affected the beast and only made it more violent. Another student tried to protect everyone with a barrier, yet the elephant shattered it with a single strike, leaving the group injured and convinced that they were about to fail the test. Just as they began to lose hope, a figure dropped from the trees between them and the monster. Before anyone could react, our boy focused his strength and delivered a single heavy punch that stopped the mammoth elephant in place. The impact was so strong that the huge body collapsed immediately, leaving the student staring in shock at the result. After confirming that the monster was defeated, he calmly claimed the jewel as if nothing unusual had happened. To him, the test was going smoothly so far, though he could not help wondering if Sumire was doing well somewhere else in the forest. She screamed as she fell to the ground but got surprised when she saw a carbuncle standing in front of her. For a moment she relaxed because the creature looked small and cute, but that feeling disappeared when it suddenly bit onto the pocket where the jewels were stored. Realizing it was trying to take the pouch, she panicked and tried to calm it down, but the carbuncle only became more aggressive and swatted at her when she got closer. Even then she hesitated because of how harmless and cute it looked, which only made the situation more stressful. Thinking quickly, she tried to distract it with something else. She picked a flower and offered it, hoping the creature would trade the pouch for it, but the carbuncle rejected it immediately and turned away as if it hated the smell. With nothing else around that might work, she forced herself to think harder and came up with another idea. She quickly gathered the clovers she had, cut them into pieces, mixed them with honey and carrots, and made a small snack to use as bait. When she presented it, the carbuncle's attention shifted at once, and the creature began drooling at the smell. The moment she was sure it worked, she threw the food away from her. The carbuncle rushed after it without hesitation, giving her the chance to grab the pouch back. She let out a long sigh of relief after confirming that none of the hair she carried had been lost. However, the moment the danger passed, she looked at the creature again and quietly prepared her skill. Using the strand of hair as a medium, she activated the summoning ability. The carbuncle sensed something strange as it glanced behind to freeze in place, but before it could escape, the skeleton had poached it. She apologized under her breath, knowing the creature would grow another jewel later, and calmly finished the hunt. The scene shifted to another part of the island, where one of the students was streaming the test live for her viewers. Amy represented a famous burger brand. She treated the stream like a show and spoke cheerfully while checking the rankings. The number of viewers kept rising, and she excitedly announced that they would look at the current leaderboard. The first place was exactly who everyone expected. The top student had held the position ever since entering the academy, and her rare attribute made her one of the strongest prospects in the hunter world. The second place belonged to the class president of A class, Kim Yuna, whose electric ability was known for its destructive power. What surprised her most was the third place. The transfer student who had started from the lowest rank had suddenly climbed to the top in a very short time. She replayed the footage to show the viewers how he had defeated a jewel elephant with a single strike, and the chat exploded in disbelief. Not only was the attack overwhelming, but his calm attitude afterward made him stand out even more. Watching the clip, she became convinced that he had the potential to become a star and decided she wanted to meet him in person if she got the chance. Just as she was talking, the rankings changed again, and another unexpected name appeared in 4th place. She stared at the screen in confusion because Sumir had always been near the bottom since transferring. According to what she knew, Sumir used to be talented before coming to the academy, but lately she had not shown any good results. Seeing her suddenly climb so high made the viewers just as shocked, and the chat quickly filled with questions about what was happening. At that same time, Sumire herself was sitting calmly in the forest, cooking as if nothing unusual was going on, leaving Amy awestruck. Sumir felt relieved that her earlier plan had worked perfectly, and believed things were finally going well for her. Since she expected Yusung to return soon, she focused on finishing the preparations before he came back. She also wondered how Yusung's skeleton she had summoned was doing, since it had run off earlier upon her orders to collect the jewels. She contemplated that it was probably influenced by her mana since she was the summoner. Hoping she did not set her expectations too high, she told herself a passing grade would suffice, as she just wanted it to return safely. Not far from her location, the skeleton was doing wonders as it grabbed another jewel from its hunt. Behind it lay a trail of defeated monsters, while its arms were already full of jewels gathered from one fight after another. The results of the hunt kept increasing her points without her even knowing, and the pile of gemstones continued to grow as the creature silently carried out her command. At sunset, Yusung was in front of Sumira as she placed a pot between them and proudly served the curry she had prepared. She confidently said that the final topping had been added and the dish was complete, asking him to accept the meal she made. He took the spoon with curiosity, but the moment he tasted it, the flavor surprised him. The sweetness of the onions blended perfectly with the rich aroma of the curry and the soft texture of the meatballs, and the fried chicken matched the dish so well that it felt like the final piece of a puzzle falling into place. Compared to the simple curry he used to eat before, this felt like something entirely different, making him realize how good real cooking could be. Seeing his reaction, she became nervous and wondered if the taste was not good enough, but her worry disappeared when he suddenly asked for another plate, which immediately made her happy. At that moment, a panel appeared to announce the halfway results of the test. The rankings showed Adela in 1st place, Kim Yuna in 2nd, Shin Yusung in 3rd, and Sumiri in 4th, leaving Siwoo and Renia petrified on the spot. Sumir herself was shocked by the result and could not believe she had reached 4th place. While at the Hunter Association's Academy City branch in South Korea, the branch manager, Mei Lin, entered the office to give a report, but the association leader was watching footage of the students. The screen showed them talking about the current rankings, with some surprise that the F-rank student was already in 3rd place, while others remained confident that the real competition had only begun. Malin explained that these were Gaon Academy students, and that the association president himself was observing their progress. He replied that there was one student he was especially curious about, the disciple of the Fist King. Although Malin tried to mention that he was F rank, the president corrected her that he was in 3rd place, as to prompt her to praise his achievement. But she pointed out that the rank system usually made it easy to measure ability. She believed that some individuals could go beyond what the numbers showed. When she wondered if the boy might have talent comparable to legendary hunters, the president admitted it was only a guess, but he felt that the student possessed something rare that they had been craving. Back at the camp, Sumir still could not believe she had reached 4th place, thinking it must be a dream. Yusung told her that this result was only the beginning and that they still needed far more points if they wanted to reach the level they were aiming for. He believed that if it were her, they could pull it off, which made her emotional, though she was unsure if she could really be of help. Even so, she promised to do her best. Not far away, 2 students hid in the bushes while watching them. After confirming their target, they quietly said that they had finally found them, and it looked like they got lucky today. Deep in the forest, a group of students gathered around a pile of jewels they had collected throughout the day. They proudly stared at their jewels and talked about how this result would push them higher in the rankings. Some of them were already imagining being assigned to a better dormitory once the test ended, believing their hard work had paid off. Their celebration was interrupted by a voice mocking them for being too loud. 2 students stepped out of the bushes, and the taller one criticized them for moving in a group despite being only B rank. When asked why they were there, he calmly stated that they had come to take the jewels, which immediately angered the group. The students protested, saying the points belonged to them because they had earned them fairly, but the intruder released a red aura and declared that in this world, the strong had the right to take whatever they wanted. Realizing the difference in strength, one of the students ordered the other to grab the jewels and run. The rest hesitated because they outnumbered the attackers, but he refused to fight, warning them that their opponent was Victor, an A-rank student. They decided to stay behind to buy time while she escaped with the points. Accepting that they had no other choice, she transformed, preparing to flee while they remained to face the enemy alone. Victor called the decision foolish and attacked without hesitation. The fight ended quickly, proving the gap between them. By the time the mid-match results were announced, Victor was already standing over the defeated students. He listened to the rankings with little interest until he heard that third place belonged to a transfer student. In the present, hiding behind the bushes, Victor contemplated that the girl beside him was from F class, which was a measly prey. He just had to take care of Yusung. The excitement made him giggle, thinking that he was too lucky today. While resting in the forest, Samir mentioned that it was getting late and checked the pocket where they stored their tents. At that moment, Yusung suddenly felt something strange and stood up, sensing danger nearby. From the bushes, several bats flew out, followed by a dark aura spreading around them. A barrier formed, trapping them inside, and Victor appeared with his partner, praising them for collecting so many points despite being F rank. He ordered them to hand over everything without resistance. Sumir nervously called him a point hunter, explaining that people like him avoided real battles and stole points from other students instead. Victor laughed at the reaction, but he grew irritated when the boy calmly stepped forward and apologized, declaring that he had no intention of giving up his points. Seeing this, Victor's partner warned that the situation grew dire now because what irked Victor the most was a weak guy who talked a lot. As expected, Victor released his aura and declared that he would tear him apart. The wind inside the barrier began to swirl as his transformation increased his speed and power. Confident, Yusung closed his eyes to focus. Taking the chance, Victor moved to strike from behind, believing the fight was already over when the boy closed his eyes. He screamed that he wouldn't be able to see him within this darkness. The next moment, the outcome was completely different from what he expected. Before Victor could land his attack, a fist struck his face, stopping him instantly. Our boy focused his flow of energy and unleashed his battle god style of heavenly ascent. The blow carried through his body and penetrated through the barrier itself, sending Victor flying back as the shock of the attack left everyone frozen in disbelief. At the camp, several students rested while the drones hovered nearby, recording everything. Among them, one of the 7 members, Park Soo-hyun, stood in frustration, feeling that the test had gone wrong from the beginning. Earlier, he had tried to recruit Yuna, believing that forming a strong group was the only way to secure enough points. He had approached her confidently and explained that he had already planned the strategy and gathered members, and that with her strength, their victory would be certain. However, she quickly saw through his intentions. She pointed out that he was only looking for points and warned that if the test ended like this, he might lose his place among the 7s. When he showed dissatisfaction, she released a small spark of electricity as a warning, mocking him back to ask if he wanted to steal her points. Although he laughed it off at the time, the humiliation stayed with him. Back in the present, he admitted to himself that pride meant nothing here and that only skill decided everything. Trying to regain control, he stood up and began giving instructions to the other students. He ordered the party leaders to check their members and equipment before the next subjugation, confidently declaring that Class A would clear the test no matter what. Even while speaking firmly, the cave full of jewels mattered more to him. Elsewhere, the girl who had been with Victor slowly regained consciousness. Her head felt heavy, and for a moment she could not understand where she was. When she turned her head, she saw Victor lying nearby with his face badly swollen, making her scream. Immediately, the memory of what had happened came back at once. He had been defeated in a single strike by the F-class student, and she herself had fainted after seeing the strange skeleton that appeared right at her face when she tried to escape. Realizing the pink-haired girl was the summoner, she convinced herself that him being paired with her must have been luck. She believed that the pink-haired girl was weak on her own, and that without her partner she could be subdued easily. Thinking this was her only chance, she used her ability to cut the ropes binding her and prepared to escape, planning to return later for revenge. Just as she stood up dragging Victor, a skeleton suddenly appeared in front of her and blocked the path. Remembering her earlier fear, she forced herself to attack first, releasing sharp yellow threads that sliced through the surrounding stones with ease. The attack should have torn the skeleton apart, but the threads were deflected by the aura surrounding its body, leaving her shocked. The noise reached the entrance of the cave, where the others heard the clash and rushed inside. When they arrived, they found the skeleton holding the girl after subduing her alone. Seeing this, they realized that she had tried to escape. Nearby, Victor, still in pain from the blow he had taken earlier, struggled to speak and muttered that he would rather be disqualified than endure this. Back at the camp, Soo-hyun was inside the tent organizing the next step of his plan when a student rushed in and reported that there had been a disturbance outside and that an intruder had appeared near the entrance. Hearing this, he frowned, believing that only the A-class students should have known about their operation. He immediately stepped out of the tent and told the student to guide him to the scene. As he walked, he recalled that 2 members had been injured earlier, so he had already suspected that someone might interfere. He saw the transfer student standing there with his partner, which confirmed his guess. Realizing who it was, Soo-hyun concluded that he must already know about their plan. The boy admitted that they had learned about it through an informant, but made it clear that he had no interest in revealing who it was. Soo-hyun replied that he did not need to ask because there was only one possible person who could have leaked the information. He challenged him to consider whether he could start a fight after seeing their numbers. The surrounding students prepared themselves for a fight, assuming that the intruders had come to attack. However, instead of backing down, Yusung calmly stated that he had no intention of avoiding a fight, but his real goal was to defeat the crystal golem inside the cave first. His words stunned Soo-hyun and the others. They could not believe that two F-rank students were talking about clearing the cave alone, when even A-class groups had needed large teams to handle a single one. Some laughed openly, calling the idea ridiculous, while others said that even being the Fist King's disciple did not mean he could ignore the difference in rank. One among them asked Soo-hyun if they should simply drive them away, but he stopped them and allowed the two to pass. He coldly said that if they wanted to rush to their own death, there was no reason to interfere, allowing them to have a go. Proceeding inside, when one of the students worried that they might actually succeed, Soo-hyun dismissed the concern and said that people who did not understand their place needed to learn the gap in talent the hard way. Instead, he was learning an important lesson of difference in born talents and the despair of the inability to reach that peak. After saying that, he returned to the tent, deciding to continue his preparations instead of wasting more time. Inside the cave, Samir looked around in amazement at the large number of crystals scattered everywhere. She realized that the information they heard had been true, and that many students must have gathered here before. He explained that the others were probably trying to close the point gap, which was why the cave had become so crowded, but he was relieved that they had been allowed to enter without fighting anyone. Even so, Samir felt uneasy, thinking that the reason no one stopped them was simply because they were F-rank. Before she could say more, he suddenly called out to her and pulled her back. A powerful blast struck the ground where she had been standing, and he rolled aside with her in his arms to avoid the attack. After stopping, he warned her to stay alert because the opponent inside this cave was far stronger than anything they had faced so far. From the darkness ahead, a gigantic figure slowly emerged. A giant crystal golem stepped forward, its body shining like armor, and the pressure coming from it made it clear that the real battle had finally begun. At the monitoring room, Mei-lin quietly watched the live footage of the exam while the staff reported each incident. When the screen showed the two F-rank students entering the crystal cave, Lin Xiao standing behind her reacted in shock and said that the area was far too dangerous for them. He reminded her that the monster inside the cave had been estimated at danger level 4 and insisted that they should stop the students before something serious happened. Mei-lin remarked that he had probably already heard what was waiting inside the cave and still chose to enter. The teacher became more anxious and asked for permission to intervene, arguing that their safety should come first. She refused without hesitation and explained that danger was part of a hunter's job. According to her, this exam was meant to act as a filter, and through it, they would learn which students truly belonged there and which did not. Hearing that, the teacher realized why the students had been warned in advance. Whatever happened during the test would be considered their own responsibility, and the academy would not step in. Inside the cave, Yusung told Sumir that he needed her to do something important. He asked her to focus entirely on supplying mana to the skeleton from that moment on. She hesitated, worried that giving too much mana might weaken her control and cause the summon to act unpredictably. He reassured her that trust was necessary, and that if she and the skeleton could not believe in each other, they would never be able to fight as partners. After hearing that, she gathered her focus and strengthened the mana link. With the flow of mana increasing, the skeleton's aura rose, and both of them rushed toward the crystal golem. Sumir remembered that the link could only be maintained for about 10 minutes, which made her nervous, because she was not sure the battle could be finished in that time. Before she could think further, the golem threw a massive punch toward them. She immediately ordered the skeleton to block it, and the collision shook the entire cave. When the dust cleared, the skeleton was still standing, having stopped the blow, and it struck back with a counterattack. Seeing this, our boy felt as if he was fighting together with two bodies at once and praised her for keeping the mana steady. The golem became more aggressive and began launching repeated attacks, but the skeleton endured every hit while he supported it with precise control. Watching the exchange, she realized that the skeleton was moving in ways she had never commanded before, and she understood that the real power behind it was his technique guiding the flow. While the golem focused on the skeleton, he slipped past the fight and moved to its blind spot. At the right moment, he signaled that the opening was enough and leaped onto the golem's back. Gathering all his strength, he concentrated his power into one strike and drove his fist down with overwhelming force. The impact shook the cave, and the giant body of the golem cracked under the blow, making it look as if the battle had finally ended. Relieved, she cheered for both of them, and to her surprise, the skeleton turned toward her and raised its thumb as if sharing the victory. The sight made her emotional, but Yusung immediately told her not to relax yet because the subjugation was not over yet. His warning confused Sumir at first, but the next moment she felt a strange phenomenon from behind. The ground trembled, and the cave began to shake. He muttered that the path had opened exactly as expected and that the real fight was about to begin. As the dust settled, several crystal golems appeared from every direction and surrounded them, making her realize how serious the situation had become. She screamed that they were completely surrounded and that the number of enemies was far too large. He observed the scene calmly and noted that the golems had appeared faster than he expected. The skeleton had already taken heavy damage in the previous fight, so it would not be able to handle a direct battle for long. Breaking through the front would expose her to danger, but if they stayed in the open, the golems would attack from every side. After thinking for a moment, he decided that it was safer to keep the wall behind them and face the enemies from one direction. He told her to stay back and use the skeleton to defend herself while he cleared a path first. She tried to stop him, worried that he would be overwhelmed alone, but he reminded her that a hunter had to make the best decision even in the worst situation. According to him, a true partner was someone who trusted that decision. After asking her to believe in him, he focused his senses, and the next moment his body moved so fast that it looked as if he had disappeared. He rushed straight toward the front line of golems and struck with a chain of savage dragon attack, shattering one after another before they could react. Using their bodies as footing, he moved through them in seconds and destroyed several more, leaving her stunned by the speed of the attack. However, in the middle of the fight, he noticed something strange. The golems were allowing him to hit their heads too easily, and the damage did not stop them the way it should have. Just as one of them collapsed, it suddenly rose again and swung its arm toward him. He reached a realization that the power source might not be in their heads. At the same time, she shouted a warning as more golems attacked from behind, their fists already swinging to crush. Just a moment later, our boy exhaled as he had blocked the blows in time. He apologized for worrying her, and admitted that he had assumed the core would be in the head like most golems. The situation reminded him of his training. His master had once explained that golems with large amounts of magic usually stored their core in the head or chest, and that hunters normally aimed there to end the fight quickly. But he had also warned that if the core was not in either place, the enemy could keep moving no matter how many times it was struck. In that case, the only way to win was to find the real source of the power instead of the body itself. Remembering those words, Yusung assured Sumire that he remembered the weakness of these golems. The golems found here were like an illusion, and the source of their strength, their core, was probably somewhere around here. He quickly looked around the cave and focused on the flow of energy. The golems in front of him felt different, as if they were only being controlled from somewhere else. After sensing the direction of the magic, he finally noticed a strong presence deeper inside the cave and realized where the real source was located. Watching the scene from the monitoring room, Mei Lin let out a quiet laugh, impressed that he had seen through the trick of the crystal cave so quickly. Outside the cave, the ground suddenly shook, and a powerful tremor spread through the forest. The students near the entrance froze in fear, realizing that something unusual had happened inside. Soo-hyun immediately sensed what it meant and concluded that the crystal golem deeper in the cave must have awakened. He counted the groups in his head and grew irritated, thinking that with the number of teams already sent in, the golems should not have been cleared so quickly. He cursed himself for missing a hidden passage and suspected that there was a route they had failed to notice. While the students were still confused, a whisper spread through the camp saying that the situation was becoming bad for them. Some whispered that the transfer student had already made it past the golem, which only made the others more doubtful. Soo-hyun cut the conversation short and told them not to make a fuss over rumors. He mocked the idea that 2 F-rank students could defeat a golem and said that the others were letting fear get to their heads. Instead of worrying about that, he warned them to stay alert for attacks from higher-rank students who might try to take advantage of the chaos. He quickly reorganized the groups, ordering one team to watch the surroundings while another checked their equipment. After a while, one of the students returned and asked what they should do next. Soo-hyun decided that the passage inside the cave was too narrow to send a large group, so only the highest-ranked students would enter with him. If something had really changed inside, he wanted to see it himself. At the same time, deep inside the cave, Yusung told Sumire to move back while he used his trait on the crystal formation that he had sensed earlier. Concentrating his power, he launched a heavy blow and shattered the crystal wall blocking the path. As the fragments fell, a warning panel suddenly appeared in front of him, showing a dangerous energy reading far beyond what he expected. The alert kept flashing, indicating that a high-level explosion had been detected ahead. Realizing the danger, he shouted for Sumire to get down immediately. The next moment, a beam of light shot through the passage with overwhelming force, tearing through everything in its path. When the dust finally settled, she slowly looked up and saw that the skeleton had been blown apart while trying to shield them. She hurriedly searched for Yusung, afraid of what she might see next. Before she could speak, another alert appeared on her watch, this time warning of a high-rank monster. The display showed the name of a rank 4 crystal golem. When she turned toward the direction of the signal, she saw the monster standing there, its body intact, and its face twisted into a frightening smile as it stared straight at her. Memories from the past suddenly came back to Sumire. She remembered an ordinary morning at home when her parents warmly reminded her to dress warmly before going outside. Her mother insisted she eat breakfast, and the calm, caring atmosphere made her feel safe as she left for school. On the snowy road, her friends ran up to her from behind and greeted her cheerfully. They joked with each other about the written test and thanked her for helping them study, saying they only passed because she had tutored them. Hearing that made her happy, and she laughed together with them as they walked toward school. At the lobby, she ran into Ishin, one of the top students. He mentioned that he was surprised and praised her for doing well, encouraging her to keep working hard. The others were shocked to hear praise from someone like him, which made the moment feel even more special. Later in class, the teacher announced the yearly rankings and revealed that a student from F class had placed 20th, something that had never happened before. When her name was called, the entire class applauded. Everyone treated her as if she was someone important, and the more they praised her, the more she felt that their expectations were growing. Even her friend told her not to act humble because everyone believed in her and expected her to succeed. She said that she might be accepted into Choten Academy in the future. Hearing those words made her happy, but at the same time she felt that she might be greedy more than she deserved. Another memory followed, this time from the day she entered a dungeon with her classmates. Before the mission began, the instructor reminded them that hunters always stood at the line between life and death, and that knowing when to retreat was also part of being strong. He told them that their safety mattered most because they were the future of the hunter world. After giving his approval, he allowed them to enter the dungeon. While she was hesitant, her friends cheered for her as they stepped through the gate together. At first, everything went well, but as they moved deeper, the battles became harder and everyone grew tired. Some students began to worry that the dungeon was more difficult than expected, but they encouraged each other to keep going and said they could rely on her summoning ability. She began to notice something strange, because she could feel her mana becoming unstable. She had a bad feeling that something would go wrong, but when her friend handed her a mana potion and told her that everyone was counting on her, she forced herself to continue. She remembered thinking at that time that she could not stop, because everyone trusted her, and if she backed off now, they would get upset. Then came the memory she wanted to forget the most. During the battle, her mana suddenly went out of control, and the skeletons she summoned turned berserk. Instead of protecting the team, they attacked the students around her. She tried to stop them, but the more she panicked, the worse the mana became. All she could do was scream while everything collapsed in front of her. She asked herself why she had chosen to become a hunter, and the only answer she found was that she liked being useful. She liked doing her best, being praised, and having people depend on her. That feeling made her push herself further than she should have. The memory ended as the present returned. The giant golem stood right in front of her, raising its arm as sharp crystal spikes shot toward her. She could not move, but before the attack reached her, our boy stepped in and struck the spikes aside, stopping the blow in an instant. He quickly asked if she was hurt, but she could not answer properly. She raised her head and muttered that it had been impossible from the beginning and that someone like her was never meant to be a hunter. No matter how hard she tried, she always failed at the moment she was needed the most. Tears filled her eyes as she apologized and said that she did not think she could continue anymore. Her words about giving up did not stop there. She remembered that he had once asked why she came to Gaon, revealing that it was because she wanted to change. Now, standing in front of the golem, she realized that the real reason had been different. She had only wanted to run away from her past, because escaping felt easier than facing her own mistakes. For a while, everything had gone well. She had fun, made friends, and felt happy doing her best. But that happiness only made her feel as if she was pretending to be someone better than she really was. The more she thought about it, the more she believed that nothing would change no matter where she went. In the end, she always ran away when things became difficult, and that was why she called herself a coward. Looking at him, she said that he had probably overcome far harder situations, while she had only caused him trouble. To her, that was proof that she was pathetic. He immediately rejected that idea. He told her that he was not trying to comfort her, and that he simply could not agree with what she was saying. In his eyes, someone who tried to change, who kept going without giving up until the end, could never be called pathetic. He explained that he had not become strong so he could look down on others. The only reason he had come this far was because one person, his master, had believed in him when no one else did. Because of that, he said she had already done enough, and if she wanted to rest, she had the right to do so. But if she still wanted to change, then he would be the one to believe in her. Hearing those words, she looked at him in silence as tears filled her eyes. She slowly reached out her hand, but the moment she tried to move forward, memories began to overlap in her mind. She heard the voices of her former classmates praising her, then blaming her, then accusing her of being the reason everything went wrong. The noise grew louder until another memory replaced it. She remembered the day she left home, when her mother saw her off at the airport and told her that if things ever became too hard, she did not need to force herself to continue. Even so, she had answered that she still wanted to become a hunter. Remembering that promise, she finally pushed past the fear and reached out again. Her hand met his, and he told her that he was glad she was his partner. At that very moment, the golem behind them released a powerful beam toward him, trying to end the fight in one strike. The light filled the cave, and the explosion covered everything in smoke. When the dust cleared, the golem stopped moving for a moment, as if confused by what it saw. He was still standing in front of her, completely unharmed. A dark aura surrounded his body, and the power he released was far greater than before. With calm eyes, he revealed the next stage of his technique, activating the first unlock of his battle god style and covering himself with the protective hide of the black dragon's body armor. During the live stream, Amy was asleep while the viewers talked to each other. The chat kept teasing her for looking tired. She was about to continue casually when a sudden warning alert appeared on the screen, instantly waking her up. The system announced that the mid-boss raid on Jewel Island had started, and the unexpected notification caught her attention. She quickly realized that the students had moved much faster than she expected. If someone had already reached the boss, then it had to be either a full group of A-class students or possibly even an S-class level team. The viewers began guessing in the chat, saying that it was probably a group effort, while some mentioned that Adela might even be able to challenge it alone. Curious to see the truth, Amy switched the camera feed to the boss area, saying that they should check who today's challenger was. The drone view changed, and the moment the image appeared on screen, she froze in shock. Standing in front of the mid-boss was our boy, the transfer student. Inside the cave, Samir noticed that the mana around him was gathering at an unusual speed. He explained that the black dragon's hide he was wearing absorbed not only his own mana, but also the mana in the surroundings, and that the black dragon's body armor turned all of that energy into raw strength. After focusing his breathing, he stepped forward and released his technique of crushing palm, striking the golem with a crushing blow that carried a dark wave of power. The impact sent a black surge through the cave as the attack forced its way into the crystal body. Sumir watched in disbelief as the golem tried to absorb the energy just like before, but he calmly said that even the golem had a limit. If something kept taking in more power than it could handle, the plate would eventually break. The golem continued absorbing the energy, but its body began to shake, showing that the flow had become unstable. He realized that the same rule applied to the monster, and the gathered power was instead absorbed, as the dark aura pierced straight into its core. Yusung admitted that defeating it alone would have been difficult, but this time he was not fighting by himself. Hearing that, she felt the connection between them more clearly than before. She could sense his mana, his heartbeat, and the trust he placed in her. For the first time, she accepted that she had truly done her best, and that her past failures did not decide everything. With that thought, she strengthened her mana without hesitation. She decided that she would not run away anymore. Focusing on the bond with her summon, she poured her power into it and created a new form, coating the skeleton with an imitation of the black dragon's armor. The black crystal golem used its power and released a storm of beams toward him and the skeleton, trying to crush them with his new ability. Even while defending, the skeleton moved forward and struck back with a heavy blow, its fist carrying the same flow of power Yusung had shown before. The impact shook the entire cave, and the strain of maintaining the mana link made Sumir feel the pressure on her body, but she held on without breaking the connection. The golem tried to endure the attack, but another dark beam struck through from the side. When it turned, it saw that the second strike had come from Yusung, which only made the monster more unstable as the energy inside its core began to overflow. The cave started to collapse around them as sharp crystal spikes rose from the ground and surrounded him from every direction. Instead of stepping back, Yusung and the skeleton focused their breathing and released another technique of the battle god style, spinning through the attacks while the black aura around their bodies deflected the incoming blows. Far away, in the monitoring room, Meilin noticed the strange armor covering his body and recognized the artifact he was using. Lin Xiao, watching beside her, explained that the equipment was the one once used by the Fist King. The artifacts were usually divided into 4 ranks: normal, rare, unique, and legendary, but there were also special types that went beyond those categories. Some existed as only a single item in the world, called epic. Some were made with ancient technology that could not be reproduced, ancient, and others were created from materials belonging to another dimension known as arcana. After hearing that, Meilin recognized the object and said that it was the Black Dragon's hide, an arcana rank artifact known for consuming enormous amounts of mana. Because of that, almost no one had ever been able to use it properly, and she called it a monstrous piece of equipment. The teacher was shocked that Yusung could already handle something like that. Inside the cave, he felt the power of the armor spreading through his body. The dark color surrounding him looked empty at first glance, but to him it felt different. Black is not the absence of color, but something that tries to accept everything without rejecting anything, as it is a very warm color. That warmth allowed him to take in the overflowing mana without losing control. Taking advantage of the opening, the skeleton rushed forward and punched straight toward the golem's core. The giant body staggered, but even then the monster forced out its strength and swung a blow at Yusung, trying to crush him entirely. Yusung did not move from his spot. With calm focus, he gathered his power and released the final strike of his style, Infinite, the Black Moon meeting the attack head-on. The collision shattered the golem's fist instantly, and the force continued through its body until the core lost all of its energy. The crystal orb cracked, then faded away as the giant form collapsed into dust. For a moment, the cave became completely silent. On the live stream, Amy stared at the screen without speaking, and the students got a notification, which made them stand in shock. A system panel appeared in the air, confirming the result that the Jewel Area 2 boss, Giant Crystal Golem, had been subjugated. After the giant golem disappeared, a shining crystal remained where its core had been. When he picked it up, a system panel appeared, confirming that they had obtained the giant crystal golem's core and earned 900 points. Seeing the number, Sumire got overly excited, and Yusung mentioned that with this much, they would be able to reach the level of the sevens. Before they could relax, a voice came from behind them, saying that the result would only matter if they managed to leave the cave safely. When they turned, Soohyun and the other students were already standing, blocking the way. He admitted that he had not expected them to defeat the golem, which made them change their plans. Instead of the golem, they were going to hunt them. Sumire protested, reminding him that he had allowed them to fight the golem, but Soohyun replied that he had only promised that they could fight it first. He had never said he would let them leave with the points. According to him, this was not a threat, but simply the reality of the test. As he spoke, he released his ability and formed a large water dragon that filled the cave with pressure. The attack rushed toward them, demanding that they hand over their pocket. The skeleton stepped forward to block the strike, but the water gathered again and broke through its defense and shattered the summon in a single blow. Seeing that, Sumire froze in shock. The other students pointed out that the two of them must have used almost all their mana fighting the golem and told them to give up before things got worse. Sumire noted that her mana was almost empty, and she realized she could not use any of her skills. When she looked at Yusung, expecting him to be cornered as well, she was surprised to see him smiling calmly. He said that they already had enough points and that there was no reason to keep fighting. It was time to leave. Soohyun scoffed at his words and asked if they were planning to run, reminding them that the path behind them was blocked and that there was nowhere to escape. Instead of answering directly, he took her hand and told her that the path they would take was not on the ground, it was the limitless sky. But Soohyun immediately used his aqua vortex. A spear of water rushed toward them to submerge them in place, but before the attack could hit, they had already disappeared, leaving Soohyun awestruck. In the next instant, Yusung had already flown, lifting her with him as his body shot upward with overwhelming speed. They broke past the cave ceiling and flew into the open air, leaving everyone behind in shock. Soohyun stared upward in disbelief, unable to accept what had happened. He clenched his teeth that if they escaped with those points, his position among the sevens would be in danger. The other students began shouting, asking what he was going to do now that the targets had gotten away. His frustration exploded, and he struck his colleague in anger, ordering him to shut up. He cursed Yusung because he could not believe he had been outplayed by an F-class trash. Sumire slowly opened her eyes and froze when she saw nothing but open sky around her. For a moment she could not understand where she was, and when she looked down, the ground felt impossibly far away. Fear ran through her body as she realized that they were standing high above the island. He calmly kept his balance in the air, using his heightened focus to step as if the sky itself were solid ground. Holding her hand, he told her to stay close and not let go, because losing balance at that height would make her fall down. She tried to calm herself and followed his steps carefully, though her legs still trembled every time she looked down. He muttered that he might have jumped a little higher than expected, but she replied that from up there the entire island looked small. Hearing that, he said that once they went back down, everything would be over. She understood that he meant the test, and the thought made her feel strangely quiet. He praised her for doing well, but instead of feeling proud, she realized that when the exam ended, they might not spend as much time together anymore. While thinking about that, her foot slipped, her hand loosened, and before she could react, she lost her grip and began to fall. The sudden drop made her scream, but the next moment he caught her arm and pulled her back before she could fall any further. After making sure she was safe, he asked her if she had enjoyed the test. She hesitated before answering. She admitted that it had been fun, more fun than she expected, which was why the thought of it ending made her feel uncomfortable. He replied that most people disliked endings because they made everything feel uncertain. The future could bring satisfaction, disappointment, happiness, or regret, and no one could know which one it would be. Even so, he said that endings were not something to fear, because they allowed people to appreciate what they had experienced and gave them the chance to start again. At that moment, a system panel appeared in the air, announcing that the test had officially ended and that the final rankings would be revealed. The names appeared one after another, and the result shocked everyone watching. First place was crowned to Yusung, second place went to Samir, while third place was Adela. On the live stream, Amy could not hide her surprise, unable to believe that the transfer student had surpassed even Adela. In the academy, the principal watched the result in shock, clearly impressed by what had happened. Among the students, Siwoo and Renia were dumbfounded after seeing the ranking, realizing that the two of them had officially become members of the Sevens. Not far away, Hyun looked at the screen with a faint smirk and remarked that for someone who had once been a failure, the result was not bad at all. After the test ended, all the students gathered in the Academy Hall for the official announcement. The principal stood at the front and declared that the day would be remembered with pride because Gaon Academy had once again achieved outstanding results in the evaluation test. He praised the effort and talent of the students, saying that their performance had made the Academy's name shine even brighter. Among all the results, he said the ones who deserved the most recognition were the members of the Sevens. When he asked everyone to welcome them with applause, the hall filled with clapping as the names were announced. When Yusung and Sumir's names were called, the students began whispering in disbelief, saying that it was the first time in the Academy's history that F-class students had entered the Sevens. The principal praised that their achievement might become an example for the rest of the school. Not everyone was pleased with the result. Yuna watched the reaction with an irritated face, but when she noticed Soo-hyun sitting silently with a hard face, a faint smile appeared. A moment later, they were leaving the hall, and she walked up to Soo-hyun without hiding her amusement. She pointed to ask if he wasn't the Sevens member of Class A, but she corrected herself that he was no longer part of the Sevens. He tried to stay calm and said that the result was only bad luck, but she laughed at the excuse and said she never expected to hear such words from him. His expression hardened, and he asked what she wanted him to say. He refused to admit that he had lost because of lack of effort or talent, and insisted that losing the 7th position did not mean his place had changed. According to him, the seat still belonged to him, and he would take it back. Yuna answered excitedly that he should do exactly that, because Class A should have at least 2 members in the Sevens if they wanted to keep their pride. Her words only made his anger worse. As he left the hall, the humiliation kept repeating in his mind. He remembered the principal praising Yusung while his own classmates looked at him with disappointment. He had even received a message from his father, warning him that he had only 3 days to regain his position. As a result, he had already submitted a request to challenge for the seat, convincing himself that the loss had only happened because he was just wearing his master's halo. In his mind, the difference in rank still meant that he should win. A panel appeared soon after, confirming that the student council president had accepted the request. The academy announced that the Sevens challenge would take place in 30 minutes. Shin Yusung, the current 7th-ranked student, and the challenger would be Park Soo-hyun, the one who had just lost the position. Hearing the announcement, the students immediately began gathering, excited to see the fight. While preparing, Soo-hyun made sure that his own artifact had been transferred back to him. He told himself that there was nothing wrong with being careful, because he had no intention of giving the opponent any chance this time. With his artifact ready, he felt confident that the result would be different. At the same time, in the student council room, the members were also watching the situation. Hyuk commented that the new students had reckless personalities because he had not expected a challenge to happen right after the test ended. Another member said that Soo-hyun probably could not accept the idea of losing his place to an F-rank student. Hyun kept looking at Yusung on the screen for a moment before asking who they thought would win. After thinking briefly, Hyuk answered that Soo-hyun would win. Even without comparing strength, he believed that Soo-hyun was the more calculating fighter and that he would not start a duel unless he was certain of victory. The others agreed, saying that the transfer student might have been lucky so far, but this time the opponent would not make a mistake. Hyun listened to their opinions and smiled slightly, asking if that was what they are thinking. The arena was prepared as Amy began streaming the event, announcing that this would be the first 7th challenge of the year. She pointed out that such a challenge had never been held immediately after an exam, which made the situation even more unusual. The challenger was Soo-hyun from Class A, and as an extra surprise, he had put his position in the International Hunter Academy tournament on the line as well. The viewers reacted with shock, saying that only elite students were allowed to participate in the I-Hat, which proved how confident he was. Some of the Sevens commented that his pride must have been deeply hurt after losing his position to an F-rank student, while the other agreed that he was probably trying to restore his reputation as quickly as possible. Among the spectators, Siwoo looked worried and wondered if Yusung would be able to handle the fight. Adela also watched the arena in silence after hearing that the opponent was the disciple of the Fist King. The name reminded her of her grandfather, and the flashback briefly crossed her mind. Yuna arrived soon after and remarked that it was unexpected to see her there, but then said she had to watch because she represented Class A. The announcement for the start of the challenge echoed through the arena, and both participants were called forward. As Yusung walked in, he remembered the warning about the rules of the Academy's challenge. In Gaon, a title could only end in 2 ways. Either it became firmly yours, or it was taken away by someone stronger. For a moment, doubt crossed his mind, and the voice of his past reminded him of the days when he was called a failure. The memory of his sister surfaced, making him realize once again what kind of place the Academy was. A place where only strength decided everything, where she reigned as a king. After putting on the dragon hide, his hesitation faded, and he stepped into the arena without stopping. The announcer declared that Yusung would face the challenger, Soo-hyun. When he looked up, He noticed Hyun watching from above, and the sight made him smile, as if silently telling her to wait until he reached her level. Stepping inside, Soohyun greeted him with confidence and mocked him for not backing down, but Yusung answered calmly that this fight was necessary to prove himself. As the signal for the match was given, the countdown began immediately. Soohyun released his water ability the moment the countdown started, making it clear that he had no intention of giving any chance. In response, Yusung took his stance while the spectators, including Sumire and the others, watched the battle with anticipation. In the hunter world, traits were evaluated based on potential, destructive power, precision, safety, and rarity. Once a hunter received a rating, their future was almost decided by it. Higher ranks meant greater strength, and the gap between ranks was considered absolute. Among the sevens, every member had always been an S-rank hunter, and even among A-rank hunters, very few could reach the higher positions. Because of that, most people believed that the result of the duel could already be predicted. Soohyun attacked first, releasing a wave of water at high speed, but our boy broke through it with his bare fist. The announcer reacted in shock as he continued to deflect every attack without using any weapon. He kept moving forward step by step while his opponent watched with a confident smile, as if he had expected this much resistance. From the stands, Yuna admitted that the performance matched the reputation of the Fist King's disciple, but she also pointed out that the water trait was not something that could be overcome by simple defense. At that moment, the scattered droplets suddenly changed shape and turned into sharp spears that attacked from behind. In response, Yusung countered by activating the battle god style of the Black Dragon, covering his body in dark aura and blocking the strike, which left many students stunned. Soohyun did not look worried, and instead wondered how long that defense could last. As the fight continued, Sumire noticed the change and realized that it was going in the bad direction because more water gathered across the arena, forming pools created by the water dragons under his control. The longer the battle went on, the stronger those dragons would become, while Yusung's movements would slowly be restricted. If the situation continued, his mana would run out first, and the fight would end in defeat. Believing the outcome was already decided, Soohyun declared the match over and prepared to finish it. At that moment, Yusung used his trait and used the Black Dragon style to launch a falling moon kick, scattering the water dragons and rushing forward with a counterattack. Soohyun reacted instantly and activated the ring he was wearing, calling for Raghia to block the strike. A wing appeared in front of him to slash the incoming stride. The spectators were shocked when they recognized the artifact as Raghia's ring, a unique grade item. Even Lin Xiao was alarmed and said the fight should be stopped, but Mei Lin reminded them that duels were part of hunter training and that there was no rule being broken. With the artifact protecting him, Soohyun mocked his opponent and said that effort alone could not overcome the wall between their ranks. Convinced that the fight had reached its end, he released his Aqua Dragon to finish the battle and prove that he would throw him where he belonged, calling him a F-rank trash. The power of the artifact being used in the duel was connected to a famous incident known as the Pillar of Light, a massive blue tunnel that reached deep into the earth near the coast of Belize. What many thought was only a story was actually real, and the monster sealed there, the water dragon Raghia, was the source of the ring's power. Because of that, Soohyun's attacks carried the strength of a rank 5 monster. Using that power, he released a massive beam of water energy toward Yusung. The attack was met with a crushing palm, and the collision shook the arena as both sides tested their strength directly. For a moment, it looked evenly matched, but the beam slowly pushed forward and began to break through the dark aura. Realizing the pressure behind it, Yusung understood that the power truly belonged to the same monster his master had once defeated. The water around the arena started moving more violently, and Soohyun mocked him for slowing down. Knowing that the fight would only become harder the longer it lasted, Yusung decided he could not hold back anymore, and rushed forward instead of retreating. In response, Soohyun unleashed Aqua Shredder, sending multiple cutting waves at once, but the attacks were avoided one after another as Yusung closed the distance. Gathering strength into his legs and aura, he launched the falling moon kick straight towards Soohyun. For a moment, it seemed the strike would land, but the water dragon appeared again and blocked the attack, then fired another beam in return. Seeing this, Soohyun declared that the result had been decided from the start and said there was no point in resisting. Yusung answered calmly that only someone who believed the outcome was fixed could speak so comfortably, hinting that Soohyun himself had already been shaken before the fight even began. The words angered him, and he insisted that victory was guaranteed as long as Raghia remained on his side. At that moment, the water dragon suddenly disappeared, and the barrier created by the ring collapsed. The unexpected change left him stunned, unable to understand what had happened. Yusung said that not every effort was rewarded, and that some people accepted limits too easily. Soohyun refused to accept it and shouted that there was no way his power could be destroyed, especially not by someone from F-class. Before he could finish, a punch drove straight into his stomach, breaking through the barrier completely and ending the fight. Yusung declared that he had no intention of letting anyone decide his fate for him. From the stands, Hyun watched the scene with interest and smiled, feeling as if those words had been directed at her as well. Soon after, the result was announced. Soo-hyun had lost the 7th challenge, and Yoo-sung would keep his position. Because Soo-hyun had placed his tournament spot as collateral, the victory also granted him the ticket to the International Hunter Academy Tournament, a global competition hosted by the Hunter Association where the winner could earn great wealth and rare artifacts. After leaving the arena, Sumir and the others hurried toward Yoo-sung, worried about his condition and saying he needed treatment immediately. Before they could continue, Hyuk cut them off and ordered everyone to move instead of standing around. At that moment, Hyun arrived and handed Yoo-sung a participation ticket, explaining that it was for the tournament. She remarked that he had changed a lot since the last time they met, which made him uneasy. Her eyes then moved toward Sumir, and she noted that he had made new friends, wondering if that change was real. He tried to respond, but Sumir held onto his clothes as if looking for courage. He accepted the ticket anyway and said that no matter what others thought, he would still go forward. Hyun approved of his answer and said she would be cheering for him before leaving. After she was gone, the group praised him. Siwoo pointed out that no one expected him to join the Sevens so soon after enrolling, and then he would participate in the I-Hat. While Yuna teased Adela, saying that he would face her in the tournament, and asking if she really planned to win alone again, or if she wanted to team up. Adela refused, saying she did not need partners because others would only slow her down because she was strong. While walking inside, Siwoo exclaimed that he never imagined that he would be able to bring down the unique artifact of Rajya and defeat Soo-hyun. He questioned if he had decided on the partner, reminding him that the I-Hat allowed teams of 3. Some people fought alone, but those who performed well could receive a unique artifact and earn the chance to enter the international competition. Winning that event was the highest honor, something every student dreamed of. He also mentioned that the student council president, Shin Hyun, had won the competition in her first year. Hearing that, he felt the distance between himself and his sister once again. Thinking about partners, his eyes briefly moved towards Sumir before he quietly stepped away from the group. As he left, Amy stopped him and said she needed a moment. He looked confused and asked who she was, which made her jolt back. She could not believe that a student from Gaon did not know her. She showed him her card and introduced herself as Amy, the Academy's honors student, but also the most popular streamer when she turned on her broadcast screen, gathering millions of views. With excitement, she remarked that was her dream, and for that to happen, she wanted to cover his participation in the tournament. She leaned closer and whispered a proposal into his ear. After that, Yoo-sung and Sumire arrived at the center dormitory of the Sevens. The moment they entered, she was overwhelmed by the scale of the place. The Sevens Center stood far more grandiosely than anything she had seen before, and even he paused for a moment while looking up at it. Inside, the facilities amazed her even more. The water heated instantly, the bedroom was far wider than expected, and the washing and drying systems worked automatically. Everything felt too advanced compared to what she was used to. The comfort made her wonder if she was really in the academy or somewhere else entirely. With the exam finally over, her thoughts turned to home. She felt excited that she could visit her family again and eat proper meals with them. The situation felt so unreal that she pinched herself to make sure she was not dreaming. When she noticed the headset nearby, she remembered what happened during the exam and his words saying it was a relief that she had been his partner. Now that the test was over, she realized she no longer had a reason to call herself his partner, and the thought left her strangely empty. Her phone rang, and it was her mother. She greeted her warmly and said she had already heard the news. Her siblings spoke excitedly in the background, congratulating her for becoming one of the 7 members, but she answered modestly, saying she had only been lucky. Her mother worried that she might be pushing herself too hard, yet she replied that everything had been so fun that she wished it could continue like this. Her mother noticed the change in her voice and said she sounded like she was hiding something. She then admitted the real reason she stopped her at the airport before she left was because she had been scared. Even so, she said she was proud of her now, and those words hit harder than anything else. Embarrassed, she promised to visit when she had time and ended the call. After lying down on the bed, memories of the past in which Ishin loathed her flashed before her as she tried to jolt them aside. Recalling her mother's words that she was proud of her, she thought of her childhood. Her mother had always told her that helping others mattered more than rank. When she was dejected and asked if she could become a hunter, she had been supported without hesitation. Remembering her advice that it was better to regret failing than to regret never trying, that thought stayed with her as she slowly drifted to sleep. But just moments later, she found herself standing in front of Yoo-sung while sweating buckets. Hyun stood in front of Yoo-sung's door, trying to gather the courage to talk. She had already decided that she wanted to join his party and tell him she wished to become his partner for the tournament. However, the moment she imagined saying it directly, the words would not come out after seeing his face. In the end, she lost her nerve and left after forcing out a simple cheer for him instead of what she truly wanted to say. That same night, Samir could not sleep at all. His words from earlier kept repeating in her mind, and the fact that he had encouraged her made her even more restless. She kept blaming herself for overthinking everything and called herself a dummy, yet she still could not calm down. Late at night, inside his quarters, Yusung entered the training portal alone. While standing in the empty space, his thoughts turned to his sister. From the moment she was born, she had always been different from everyone else. He could understand what she was thinking, yet she had always been the pride of the Shino family. Because of that, he had always felt a quiet fear toward her. Even now, he wondered if he was still the same weak person he used to be. A voice suddenly came from behind, saying it was unexpected to see him there. Soo-hyun walked closer and remarked that he thought a winner should look happier after a victory. He handed him a bottle, which he accepted without hesitation. Soo-hyun commented that the tournament was close, yet he drank it without even questioning it. He replied that it did not look suspicious. Soo-hyun then warned him not to trust anyone at Gaon, saying that everyone there was a rival. Before the conversation could continue, a girl called Soo-hyun from behind about something from the previous day, forcing him to step away for a moment. Watching him go, he smiled slightly and muttered that Soo-hyun always said the opposite of what he really meant. He talked about effort being meaningless, yet never stopped trying himself, and told others not to trust anyone even though he clearly believed in someone. Hearing that, Soo-hyun asked what he really wanted, and why he had that expression even after winning. After a short pause, he answered that his goal was simple. He wanted to become the strongest. Soo-hyun was surprised and asked if he was serious, reminding him that even at Gaon, the student council president Ha-yoon stood at the top. Yusung confirmed it, saying that was exactly why he had to defeat her no matter what. Soo-hyun stayed silent for a moment before wishing him luck, adding that he would be cheering him on. He admitted that saying it felt embarrassing after losing to him, but warned that the eye hat would be far more difficult. If he wanted to survive there, he would have to use the strongest card he had. He left after that, while Yusung remained inside the portal, thinking about those words. Later that night, Samir finally opened her door with tired eyes, only to freeze in surprise when she saw Yusung standing in front of her. Before she could react, he grabbed her shoulders and called out to her seriously, which left her completely flustered. With a firm expression, he asked if she could help him. Still confused and caught in the moment, she agreed without even thinking, then quickly tried to act calm and said it was nothing. However, she could not hide her curiosity and asked what kind of help he needed from her. Inside a rank 4 mid-class dungeon known as the Forest of the Spirits, Samir looked around in shock at the gloomy landscape filled with graves and wandering undead. He reminded her that Soo-hyun had already mentioned where the NHIT competition would take place. She recalled that the danger zone there was called the Graveyard of Despair, a place filled with 14 types of undead monsters, with a lich as the boss. He explained that this was exactly why he brought her there. They would practice in advance under the same conditions. She suggested she could try to control undead like ghouls or skeletons, since at most she could normally summon 3 at once. He answered that they would go further than that. At that moment, the ground shook, and countless undead came from the fog, forming a massive army. The dead knight spoke in a hollow voice, warning that the living who stepped onto the land of the dead would be claimed by the vengeful spirits. The sight alone made her freeze, and she asked if these were really the undead she was supposed to make her summon. He calmly confirmed it and stepped forward. He rushed straight into the army without hesitation. Unlike the exam, he did not hold back at all. In a single charge, he crushed the skeletons one after another, and with Dragon Palm he destroyed the undead leader instantly. After clearing the path, he told her it was her turn and ordered her to make a contract before the Dark Knight could regenerate. She hesitated, shocked that the target was a Dark Knight, a rank 4 boss. She reminded him that the last time she tried something similar, her mana went berserk. He explained that this was exactly why he chose this dungeon. His master's colleague had once faced the same problem. When too much mana flows through channels that are too narrow, it reverses like water hitting a dam. It was not a flaw, but proof that her mana was far greater than normal. Instead of fearing it, she needed to conquer it and let the power flow outward. He assured her that even if she failed or lost control, it would not matter. They could repeat the attempt as many times as needed. Hearing that, she forced herself to step forward. As she approached the fallen Dark Knight, she placed her hand on it and began the summoning spell. Dark energy gathered around the body, forming a sphere of light and shadow. A voice echoed in her mind, telling her that no one could escape the witch's contract and that she had to give the servant a name. Without fully realizing it, as her pupils turned pink, she spoke the name Laplace, and light burst from the orb, and the energy spread across the forest. She suddenly turned back to her usual self, confused, unsure if it had worked. He immediately told her that he knew she could do it. When she looked ahead, the Dark Knight was standing before her, completely transformed. The undead knight knelt and called her the Queen of the Dead, asking her to grant them new names. At the same time, the entire army of undead lowered themselves before her, acknowledging her as their master. At the competition hall, Mei Lin informed the association leader that all preparations were complete. The leader approved and decided to head to the competition hall to meet the rookies who were about to participate. As the event began, Amy started streaming and announced that the association leader had entered and the competition was about to start. She skipped the formal introductions and focused on the strongest candidates instead. The first participant she mentioned was Adela Hortensia, a powerful contender who was competing alone. After that, she introduced the Japanese team from Choten Academy, led by Seiji along with White Oni Ishin and Sakura. All three possessed S-rank traits and were members of the 7 numbers of their schools, making them one of the strongest teams. The next team came from China, but very little information was known about them. Rumors described them as extremely strong, yet this was their first official appearance, and their traits were completely hidden. Finally, the last team to enter was the group of New Year students. Somewhere in the shadows, a woman spoke to a veteran and remarked that although he was that man's disciple, he did not resemble him at all. When he asked if she was worried about Liu Jin, she denied it and said that a competition like this was nothing more than momentary entertainment. However, she was curious about how far he could manifest the battle god style with his current body. The woman was the rank 8 hunter known as the Sword God, considered the strongest sword in the world. The NHIT competition officially began, and the students were instructed to move toward the assigned portals. Several high-ranking hunters were observing the event, including Kazuki Shoichi, Ju Himchin, and Rosa Greenwood, the guildmaster of the Green Forest Guild. They noticed that one of the participants was fighting solo, and Himchan recognized her as Adela and that she had already become famous within the Academy City. Rosa commented that it was impressive to see so many talented students this year, especially with 2 teams from the same academy, and that the rookie had become a major topic of discussion. Soon after, the association leader gave a short speech, wishing the students courage in facing the unknown and hoping for prosperity for mankind before declaring the competition open. The participants then stepped into the portals. Sumire hesitated before entering, but Yusung encouraged her and reminded her to follow the plan. After hearing that, she gathered her courage and went inside with him. From a distance, Ishin noticed her figure and became confused, wondering if the person he saw was really Sumire. Inside the Cemetery of Despair, a number of ghouls appeared the moment they arrived. The scale of the place felt far greater than expected, matching the level of the National Hunter competition. Yusung said they were ready, and Sumire immediately activated her Mists of the Dead. Yusung supported her so she could focus properly, reminding her that this was the result of their special training. Ghouls rushed toward them, but before they could reach their target, the knight stepped forward and jabbed at the ghoul to stop the attack. The knight then ordered the soldiers to annihilate every enemy and protect their master. The sudden command shocked the viewers watching the stream, as the battle was unfolding very differently than they expected. The knights went on a rampage and destroyed the ghouls almost instantly. After confirming the situation, Yusung told her it was time to begin the real fight. She then summoned the Dark Knight, knowing that the Cemetery of Despair contained 2 boss monsters, the high-ranking necromancer known as the Lich King and the soul harvester called the Reaper. Even though defeating only one would be enough to pass the exam, their goal was to defeat both. With that decision made, she moved forward with determination, wanting to prove she could become as strong as he believed. They split up to handle the battle efficiently, while the observers outside watched with interest. Rosa smiled with satisfaction, and Himchan noted that it looked as if the two had prepared for this far in advance. As the competition began, Soohyun's teammate asked who he thought would win. After observing the participants, Soohyun said most of the teams had already secured their place in the international tournament, so the real focus should be on Yusung and Adela. Since the winning side would gain the right to participate in the international competition, the result of this match was especially important. Yuna was certain about the outcome and said the winner had already been decided. She reminded everyone that Adela ranked first at Gaon and was the granddaughter of the legendary Italian hunter Aden Hortensia. Her rare ice trait, uncommon even among S-class hunters, had made her famous worldwide. In Italy, she had defeated every rookie from Bianca Academy and held first place by a huge margin even among her peers. Because of that record, she was considered one of the 3 rookies who had received the most attention in the world, someone who had been exceptional from birth, while her lackey buttered her up, saying the only one able to defeat her was Yuna. Inside the field, Adela entered the boss area alone and confronted the Ice Warlock Kella, a danger rank 4 monster. The warlock mocked her for daring to invade the palace by herself. She immediately ordered an attack and released a massive burst of power. The explosion filled the entire area, and for a moment the warlock cursed her to disappear. When the smoke cleared, Adela appeared right in front of the enemy, her eyes glowing coldly. The warlock tried to curse her and force her back, but she said she hated that voice and ended the fight instantly. The warlock was defeated without resistance, and she finished the battle while complaining that it was boring. At another portal, Han Seola's team from Skyscraper Academy was fighting monsters while aiming to make the Garden of the Holy Land appear. Seola defeated the last wolf and expected the boss to show up, but the surroundings suddenly became darker instead. She began to doubt the information about the pocket dungeon, but before she could react, something pierced through her shoulder. The lone wolf of Moon? The werewolf appeared behind her and attacked without warning, as she was left helpless because of her injuries. But Liu Jin stepped forward and told her to move aside. Facing the boss alone, he drew his weapon and struck once. The werewolf was cut into countless slashes in a single motion, ending the fight immediately and leaving Ciola stunned. After the battle, he told her to stay back next time because she would only get in the way. She apologized and the team finished the portal soon after. Adela exited her portal first, clearing it in only 3 minutes and 15 seconds. In the observation room, Kazuki noted that she had already finished, and Himchan said the first place would obviously go to her because the difference in strength was overwhelming. The second fastest record belonged to Liu Jin's team with 4 minutes and 35 seconds, and the third place was taken by the Choten Academy team with 5 minutes and 11 seconds. Ishin kept staring at the portal, worried about Samira, while Yuna smirked and said the result was exactly what she expected. She mentioned it was obvious that Adela was a monster and insisted that no one could defeat Adela. Just as the rankings seemed settled, a new announcement was made. Yusung's party had cleared the dungeon in 6 minutes and 10 seconds, but unlike the others, they had defeated 2 boss monsters instead of 1. Because of that, their score surpassed everyone else, and they were placed in first. The room fell silent in shock. Yuna and Suhyun could not believe that they had defeated 2 bosses in such a short time, and the officials confirmed that the team had also obtained 2 artifacts in a single attempt, setting a new record for the competition. Yuna was left speechless as the rankings changed in front of her. Watching from above, the veteran recognized the disciple of the Fist King, while the Sword God looked satisfied after seeing the result, and finally understood why that guy had invited her to watch the competition. The Fist King had taught Yusung long ago that every boss monster follows a specific attack pattern. Strength alone was not enough to defeat them. If a hunter didn't know the weakness behind the boss, the fight would never end no matter how powerful the attack was. The boss he faced this time was the Soul Collector, Reaper, a rank 4 monster known for its immortality. Even if its body was destroyed, it would revive again unless the correct method was used. Because of that, the fight was not about overpowering the enemy, but about finding the weakness, which was the lantern the Reaper is holding. As soon as the battle began, the Soul Harvester stared at him and declared that another soul was ready to be harvested. The Reaper attacked without hesitation, but our boy remembered the warning that defeating the body itself had no meaning. As long as the monster continued to collect souls, it would keep coming back. The real target was the lantern held by the Reaper. Knowing that, he moved forward without wasting time and rushed straight toward the boss. He decided to end the fight in a single strike. Gathering power into his palm, he hit the exact point where the lantern was connected and shattered the bones. The moment it broke, the boss lost its power, and the battle ended instantly. He confirmed that he obtained what he needed from the fight, but he could not stay there any longer. Knowing the next test was still ongoing, he immediately headed toward Sumire's location. On the other side of the field, Sumire was facing a giant skull golem controlled by a skeleton necromancer named Arch Lich. The monster called her a young necromancer and mocked the difference between them, even though they both used the same type of magic. The pressure alone made her heart race, and for a moment she couldn't even feel her legs. This test felt completely different from the previous ones. The danger was real, and she knew that she could actually die here. Part of her wanted to run, but she forced herself to stay. She decided that she needed to hold, as she wanted to change as well. Determined to fight and hold them until he arrived, she summoned her skeleton soldiers and called out the Dark Knight. The Lich attacked immediately, saying that he would take both her life and power. She ordered the skeleton to block the attack while the Dark Knight led the rest of the undead forward. Following her command, the soldiers charged without hesitation, clashing with the Lich's army. For a moment, the plan seemed to work. By sending her forces from different directions while supporting them with black magic, she slowly started gaining control of the battle. The tactic was simple, but effective enough to keep her alive. However, the Lich quickly understood what she was doing and laughed at the strategy, saying that such a method was nothing special. With a wave of his power, he released multiple attacks at once, overwhelming her soldiers and breaking their formation. The battlefield collapsed in an instant, and she found herself cornered with no way to escape. Watching her struggle, the Lich declared that resistance was meaningless, because death had already reached her. Sumire focused on maintaining the formation and kept praying so the line would not break. She ordered everyone to hold their positions and told the rear to fill the gap immediately if the front collapsed. Watching the fight, the Lich found it interesting that her summons were growing stronger as time passed. He realized she was adapting during battle and even praised her talent, calling it frightening, but he still declared that she would die there. The Lich gathered mana and created a huge red ball, sending it toward them. Sumire ordered the skeleton to activate its skill, but the Lich mocked the attempt, saying such a sloppy attack could never stop him. She felt the overwhelming amount of mana coming from the attack and knew she could not block it alone. Even so, she sensed that his defenses had weakened after using so much power. Believing this was her only chance, she decided to spend all her mana if necessary, and ordered the Dark Knight to move in. The Dark Knight forced its way through the attack while advancing forward. The Lich admitted the strike was impressive, but said it would never break the skull golem barrier protecting him. At that moment, she commanded the skeleton to act. The skeleton suddenly appeared above the Lich and caught him off guard, then used the technique Imitation of Dark Moon and dealt heavy damage. Although injured, the Lich remained calm and said the attack had been dangerous, but was not enough. He did not know what technique was used, yet his body could still endure it. He declared that their attacks would no longer work and activated Cloud of Despair. A massive black flame spread out and melted the undead soldiers like acid. He explained that Unsummon was a basic skill and that all that remained now was pure mana. As he consumed the power, he felt his body changing and evolved, saying that weaker necromancers were nothing more than food to the strong. After metamorphosis, he decided to eliminate the most troublesome opponent first and charge toward the Death Knight. Sumir prayed for it to hold on a little longer, but the Lich's sword pierced straight through the knight and shattered it into pieces. Even after seeing their strongest summon fall, she remained calm because everything had gone according to plan. The Lich laughed and said the power of the artifact had decided the battle and that it was over for her. However, she answered that she had been waiting for this moment. Right then, a voice revealed that after metamorphosis, the Lich King's physical defense actually became weaker. Yusung suddenly appeared in front of her and stopped the incoming attack. He praised her for holding on this long and told her she could leave the rest to him. The Lich became furious and demanded to know how his strike had been blocked, but before he could react, Yusung explained that fighting an undead Lich was troublesome for a martial artist, yet once the battle turned into pure endurance, the result would be different. He kicked away the orb the Lich had created and closed the distance in an instant. With a single decisive strike, he shattered the Lich's body and ended the fight completely. The battle ended with both bosses eliminated. As the rewards appeared, Yusung obtained a unique artifact called the Immortal Ring. Sumir became excited and congratulated him, but when he looked at the ring, he said it suited her better. She tried to refuse, saying it was too valuable, yet he insisted because he already had equipment he could use. Without hesitation, he put the ring on her finger himself. Watching this, she felt the moment seemed strangely similar to a marriage, which made the atmosphere too embarrassing for her for a second. Soon after, the result was announced to the stadium. In their very first appearance, the Gaon rookies had defeated 2 bosses at once and set a new record with a double kill. When the ranking changed, Adela realized she had lost and stood in shock at the unexpected outcome. After defeating both opponents at once, the team received double points and twice the number of artifacts. The unexpected result shocked everyone, since the newcomers had defeated the most prominent rookies and won the championship. The winners were rewarded with 2 artifacts, a large prize, and seed tickets for the international competition. The spectators could not hide their disbelief that F-rank hunters had defeated S-rank hunters with a coordinated dual attack. Soo-hyun stood stunned, unable to believe the outcome, while the principal showed clear excitement. Among the guests, Baeon's guild CEO Kim Jin Cheol remarked that another frightening rookie had appeared at Gaon. Brilliant Guild CEO Jin Sung-ah added that the boy was already good enough to be sent into real battles. When asked if he was being compared to veteran hunters, Jin replied that he had not even used his full strength earlier, which made their potential even more alarming. While Yusung felt satisfied after the victory, knowing he had achieved what he wanted. The Immortal's Ring was an artifact normally found only above the 10th floor of the tower, filled with dense mana like a powerful elixir. Remembering his master's words, he knew his current mana was still insufficient to awaken the battle god style and the hidden power of the Black Dragon's hide. To grow stronger, a ranker had to climb the tower and obtain artifacts. He was excited that absorbing this ring would bring him closer to a new technique. While he thought about this, Sumir looked at the ring he had given her earlier, still unsure how to feel about it. At that moment, a voice suddenly called out to her. Ishin confronted her, asking if South Korea was the place she chose after abandoning her former party. His words caught her off guard, and she tried to explain that she had not meant to leave them. He refused to listen, and accused her of being useless from the start, saying nothing had changed whether she was in Japan or Korea because she hadn't achieved anything, calling her a coward. He mocked her for running away again, which left her shaken and close to tears. Before the situation could escalate, a hand stopped him. Yusung stepped in and told him to stop, reminding him that the reunion should be over and he should head back. The two exchanged tense looks, but the moment was broken when the rest of Ishin's team arrived. Seiji loudly called for him, while Sakura complained that he had suddenly run off. They greeted the Korean team and praised their performance, congratulating them on their impressive double subjugation. Yusung responded calmly, saying that his own party member was competent, but Seiji warned that the international competition would be different and hinted that their team had not yet shown its real strength. Ishin agreed and said he hoped they would participate. declaring that he would defeat them to crush their dreams himself before leaving with his teammates. After they were gone, Yusung mentioned they must have been her former party members. She admitted it and said their anger was natural since she had left without a word. Hearing that, he moved closer and asked what it would take for her to stop blaming herself, which caught her by surprise. He told her he did not believe she ran away out of cowardice but because she refused to give up. He reminded her that the double subjugation would not have been possible without her and said he wanted her to believe in herself. He then asked if she really thought they would lose at the international competition before stating that he was certain they would win. To make his point clear, he used his watch to send her an invitation to join the international competition and told her to show him her resolve rather than mere words. During training, Yusung examined the Reaper's soul orb and sensed the extremely dense mana inside it. Absorbing it required enduring a dangerous ordeal where evil spirits would try to corrupt the user. Knowing this, he crushed the orb and began the absorption. Countless souls rushed into him, filled with nothing but malice, trying to take over his body. Their voices whispered in his ears, digging out feelings of helplessness, inferiority, and fear, even taking the form of his sister's voice to shake his mind. He quickly realized resisting the voices directly was pointless, because the whispers were ultimately his own doubts. Instead of denying them, he accepted them and acknowledged his weakness, which was the real objective of the trial. That acceptance allowed him to calm himself and focus. Through meditation, he stabilized his mana and gradually absorbed the orb completely. While he finished the process, someone nearby commented in surprise at the enormous amount of mana he had just handled. Yusung looked over, annoyed at being watched, but the person apologized and explained that he was simply impressed, mentioning that it was the first time he had been discovered so quickly since the student council president figured him out. He introduced himself as Min Seong-woo and said it was rare to see someone grow that fast. Asking him not to beat around the bush, Min Seong-woo offered him a position in the student council, explaining that it was the most elite group in Gaon and that winning the international qualifier right after enrolling made him more than qualified. He added that the invitation came directly from the student council president, implying that refusing would not be wise. Unexpectedly, Yusung rejected the offer without hesitation, surprising him. Seong-woo warned him that going against the student council president could cause trouble, but he simply replied that he understood that better than anyone. That was exactly why he could not accept, because the student council president was someone he intended to overcome. With that, he left the training ground. Later, he walked along the path under the cherry blossom trees and stopped to look at the falling petals. He smiled quietly until Sumire approached from behind. Moving in the same direction as the dormitory, the two walked together. While looking at the blossoms, she mentioned that the cherry blossoms were falling, as she informed Yusung that they bloomed for only 2 weeks each year. When he asked if that made her sad, she shook her head and said that the short time only made them more beautiful. After hesitating for a moment, she gathered the courage to speak and told him she had decided to join his party. She bowed enthusiastically and said she hoped to work with him again. He bowed back and replied that she should take care of him. Their conversation was interrupted when Siwoo and Renia arrived. They asked what plans everyone had for the holidays. Sumire said she would go to Japan, which led to questions about her family, and the topic shifted to Yusung as well. He answered with mild hesitation that his family was busy, ending the conversation without going into detail. Elsewhere, the principal reviewed the candidates for the upcoming mission and thought about both Adela and him. In terms of skill, either could represent the country, so the only question was which one was more suitable. After considering it carefully, the principal smiled, having already made his decision. Soon after, while Yuna was shopping her heart out, she received a message from the principal assigning her a joint mission with Yusung. Seeing the notification, she smiled with interest and thought that the next mission was going to be fun.